The Revenge of the Soul Eater. Ch-125. The Mitsurugi household was given the important task of guarding the demon gate by the Emperor. Sora Mitsurugi, who was the heir of the family, was called on to take The Revenge of the Soul Eater. The Mitsurugi household was given the important task of guarding the demon gate by the Emperor. Sora Mitsurugi, who was the heir of the family, was called on to take the trial ceremony at the age of 13. The trial is something that he must overcome in order to learn the Phantom Blade style that was passed down the Mitsurugi household from generation to generation. The other 7 pupils of the same age who had taken the trial have all passed, and now only Sora remained. His father, brother, fiancé, and a pair of siblings who have watched over him were all looking, as Sora's trial ceremony solemnly began. Back 1. Gift. Here's a list of illustrations we received. All of this is posted with permission. Sora Tatsu, from left to right, Goken Sora Ryutaku, Gokenshai, and Shikibu, Kaoru-sama. You're scaring me. You can make room for your mother, with your mother's fragility. I love the composition of the dragons in the sky. Date with the Princess Kaoru-sama. Claudia is cute. I have to get her a date. 2. Episode 1 Trial Ceremony. With a dry sound, the wooden sword rolled to the ground. I stared at my empty hand, stunned. The referee's voice is strangely distant, saying, "Until then, it was a match that had to be won." But he lost it perfectly. He was knocked off his wooden sword in just 1 round. At the age of 13, a test for a student of Genso Itarayo, who has reached adulthood. The opponent is the Dragon Tusk Soldier. He is a skeleton swordsman created by magic. He is not a weak opponent. On the contrary, they are an opponent that even regular Imperial soldiers and full-fledged adventurers would struggle against in a one-on-one battle. As an opponent for a freshly grown boy and girl to fight, it could be said to be out of the norm. However, there is no one here to question that. It was only natural for anyone who studied the illusionary Eto style to be able to defeat an opponent of this caliber. In fact, the other 7 had all won. Only one of them lost. All the effort they have put in to get to this day, all the years, all the efforts that had been accumulated over the years, since birth, had come to nothing. As I nodded wordlessly, my father's voice wandered in from above me. His voice was heavy, cold and dry. It was heavy, cold, and dry. Yes, father. The Mitsurugi family is a warrior family whose ancestors were swordsmen who defeated the demon gods 300 years ago. The Itarayu is the sword of destruction that the founder devised to protect his life. It is the sword that protects people from dragons, giants and demons. This is why our family has been asked by the Emperor to protect the gate. You know this, don't you? I know what I'm doing. It is the duty of every person born into the house of the Mitsurugi to inherit the sword of their ancestors, and it is your duty to pass the sword on to the next generation. Those who fail to do these 2 things are not qualified to cross the threshold of our family. Father, as you have failed to go beyond the test, you are not qualified to learn the Itarayu style, and if you have not mastered the Itarayu, you are not qualified to succeed to the Swords family. You are hereby disinherited from my family as of today. From this point forward, you are not allowed to call yourself a swordsman. Pack your bags today, and leave this island tomorrow. There is no need for weaklings in this land. His tone of voice was so nonchalant that you wouldn't think he was telling his own son to be exiled. The face of my father, the 17th swordsman, Mitsurugi Shikibu, showed no signs of conflict. He was looking at me as if he were looking at a stone on the road. To a father who has devoted his life to the sword, a person without swordsmanship, even if he is his son, would be nothing more than dust. I knew that. Ever since I can remember, I've had this look on me. Even the most insensitive of children will sprout insight. I've been trying to get my father's approval for as long as I can remember. But in the end, it was never going to happen. No matter what I say here, it won't change my father's mind. Crying, screaming, getting down on his knees, and begging for mercy would not do him any good. This is not just about my father. His students and his younger brothers and sisters on his left and right looked at him coldly. Mockery, contempt, pity, and indifference. It's just as my father just said. The curse of the demon god, which was sealed by the sword sage, continues to invade this world through the demon gate. The level of demons and monsters that roam this island is incomparable to those on the continent, but this is because of the demon gate. Onigashima, as the people call it. To those who live in such a place, Being weak is in itself a sin and an evil. Weak people who can only drag others down should quickly leave the island. That was the consensus of all those present here. I left the dojo as if to escape and packed my bags in my room, crying. Then the next morning, I left the house at the time the sunrise appeared in the eastern sky. To be exact, I was kicked out. This is my room from today. You need to get the hell out of here. Yeah, that's right. I'm the true-born son of the sword, and this is my room. It's all under your father's direction. That said, it was his younger brother, Mitsurugi Laguna, who smiled thinly. Even though he is my brother, this one has black hair, and the other one has blonde hair. As can be seen from the difference in appearance, they are brothers from different mothers. They are the same age, 13. Unfortunately, even their birthdays were the same. In terms of sword talent, Laguna was without a doubt the better swordsman. In physique and brains, Laguna's mother was the daughter of a great imperial nobleman, so Laguna was superior in terms of bloodline. But even so, being the son of a legitimate wife, the position of heir to the Swords family was rolled over to us. I know that Laguna was not amused by this. I know that Laguna wasn't amused by it, and he didn't even try to hide it from me. Again, Laguna stared at me with hatred and contempt in his blue eyes. Finally, I'm free from the pain of calling an incompetent person like you my brother. Sora, even though you are your father's son, you are still an inexperienced person who has yet to even reach the rank of Shinzio. You bring shame to the swordsman's family. Don't ever let me see that face again. Rest assured, I will fulfill my duty as a true-born son. I'll even take care of your permitted marriage. Ayaka. Laguna, you look like you're about to punch me in the face. That's fine, you can hit me if you want. But if you do, I'll just hit you back. Don't think that you, who couldn't get a handle on the Dragon Fang soldiers, can beat me. Shinzu excitation. The moment he shouted loudly, a sword appeared in Laguna's hand. A magnificent two-handed sword, shining golden. How many times have I seen this shine? Every time I look at it, I am reminded of the overwhelming difference between Laguna and myself. Because this sword is another Laguna. Human beings have another you in their heart, deep in their soul. This is called Homo sapiens or anima. The secret of a Jiraiya is to be aware of, control, and embody this anima. This is called mind dressing, and Laguna had mastered it at the age of only 13. Laguna was not alone. The same was true for Ayaka, his fiancée, and all the other 5 classmates had mastered the mind suit. This was a rare occurrence in the history of the illusionary Ito school. Talent calling for talent, clashing with each other, and growing by polishing each other. This was the golden generation. That's what people around them called them. With the exception of one person who hadn't yet reached his heart. Your legs are shaking. You haven't even pulled out your sword yet. Kun, well, that's okay. Any more and you will be a bully to the weak. The illusionary Ito Ryu is a sword of destruction and a sword of protection. You have to be kind to the weak as a legitimate son of the swordsman's family and be kind to the weak. Here, let me give you this. With that, Laguna threw 3 gold coins on the ground. It's a lot of money that can easily live for 3 months. I'd say pick it up now. I'd say pick it up. But I'm sure you have a lot of pride. You can't do that in front of me like a beggar, can you? Don't worry, I'll be gone here. After I'm gone, please pick up the money that fell slowly, my dear brother. Ha 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 ha. After a big laugh, Laguna walked away in a big gait. He clenched his fists and stared at its back, but his mouth and feet didn't move as if they were frozen. In the meantime, Laguna's figure has disappeared behind the gate. After no one is gone, he looks at the ground softly. The 3 gold coins Laguna had released glowed dully in the morning sun's light coming in from the east. Chapter 2 Farewell. After parting with Laguna, I trudged to my mother's grave in a daze. I didn't pick up any gold coins. Not in Laguna's words, but because of my pride. But even as I was walking to the grave, I found myself regretting that decision inwardly. That was terribly shameful. Even if I mastered the mind outfit, I wouldn't have the same golden glow as Laguna. I'm sure it would be terribly distorted and uncomfortable to look at. I was thinking this with a touch of self-mockery. The sky, a voice, cool and refreshing as the wind rushed through the grass, shook my earbuds. The voice dispelled any stagnation in my mind. A young girl, her glossy black hair blowing in the breeze, was on her way to visit her mother's grave. It was Ayaka. As you're right, the girl's fiancé. Ayaka, you're here. Yes, I had to apologize to Shizuya-sama for something I had to do. Are you sorry to your mother? Yes, I was asked to help the sky, but in the end I couldn't do anything about it. I was apologizing for that. Saying that, Ayaka looked at me with lonely eyes. Ayaka, who was a forgiven marriage and a student of mine in the same year, had a sword talent that rivaled Laguna's. However, she never made light of her talent and never underestimated those who were weaker than she was. He was willing to train with me during Kumite practice, and even stayed up late at night to train with me. On his days off, he would take me out on the street when I was too busy pretending to practice, saying that it was part of the training process to change my mood. Seeing Ayaka grow more dignified, strong and beautiful with age, there was no one who didn't envy her fiancé. Some acted beyond envy, and Laguna, for example, had even blatantly made a pass at Ayaka. But Ayaka didn't take such an approach in stride, and always treated me with the same smile. More than once, I was delighted to know that I was going to marry this girl. One of the reasons why he strived to be strong was because he wanted to be the right man for Ayaka. In fact, when my father had disowned me, I had a faint hope that Ayaka would follow me. But, seeing Ayaka sighing heavily, his expectations wavered. Ayaka. I've tried so hard for Shizuya-sama's sake, and the result is this. Then I wouldn't have wasted so much time. What, useless? Hey, Sora, did you think that maybe I would follow you or something? No, that's not. From the way you reacted, you were expecting it. No way. Neatly, clearly, Ayaka dismissed her expectations. I am a pardoned marriage of the Mitsurugi family's heir. You're no longer a legitimate married man after being disinherited. I never disliked Sora, who was trying his best to become strong, but that doesn't mean I like him. I'm being awful, aren't I? But I don't want you to make strange assumptions, and you might misunderstand and rely on my parents' house after you leave the island. I'm going to make that clear to you right now so that won't happen. Wait, the sky. The feelings I used to have for you were not affection, but pity. I wonder if disappointment will be added to it now. I cannot love anyone less than me. Oh, I don't know how you will live your life from here on out. Since you're not a good quitter, you may be thinking of becoming an adventurer or soldier to make a name for yourself and get Mukun-sama to disown you. But I think you should give up the path of the sword now. It's unlikely that Mukun-sama would accept a person who has been disinherited once, and more importantly, someone who can't fight a two-legged battle against the Dragon Tusk soldiers is a dream come true for someone who can't make a name for himself with a sword. It's better for you to let go of the sword and live a quiet life. I'm sure Shizuya-sama will understand. Then Ayaka said goodbye with a glint of pity in her eyes. Then she turned her back on him and left. Not once did she stop, not once did she look back. Not once did he look back. It was as if I had no memory of where or how I walked afterwards. The next thing I knew, I found myself on the dock, blowing in the sea breeze. In my hand, I had a one-way ticket to the continent, and in front of me stood a pair of siblings with a somber look on their faces. As a guardian, Kazuma had been taking care of me since I was a child. His huge bear-like body and honest-looking face gave him the appearance of a strong warrior. The other one is Gaz's younger sister, Cecil Sima. She is the one who took care of me from my childhood as my baby brother and sister. I can remember as if it were yesterday the days when I used to walk behind her with my sister and her sister. Especially after my mother died, she was the one who took care of me sympathetically. With these two, unlike Ayaka, these two would follow me. I looked at the two men standing on the dock as if I were clinging to them. But my hopes were dashed like a bubble. It's a shame about the test. It's a pity that I couldn't bring out the power of my youngster, she said. I am truly sorry about that. I hope you can find a suitable teacher on the continent. Is that your future? If I am a vassal of the swordsman, I will follow the instructions of the Okata-sama. I am a vassal of the Gosei family, and I will obey your instructions. May you always be in good health. Here's your lunch. Please eat it on the boat, and I'll take care of Shizuya's grave on my own responsibility. Please don't worry about it. Yes, about the future? Well, I didn't want to tell you this because I didn't want to get in the way of the test ritual, but I was told by your highness the other day that you were going to be a concubine. Well, I guess I'll have to go up to the side of Gokun-sama. A warrior who adored him as an older brother wished him well in the future. The woman who adored him as an older sister told him she would be his father's concubine. The option of following them hadn't even occurred to them. After seeing them off, They boarded a boat and left Onigashima. The siblings waved twice or thrice to the boat as it leaves the shore, and then turned their backs on it, seemingly without a care in the world. I stare at their backs. The clenched fist remained trembling from earlier. Heartless. It would be a mistake to say something resentful like that. He should be grateful just for coming to see someone who was disowned by the head of the family and excommunicated by the school to see him off like this. In fact, no one else I knew came to see me off. But no matter how much I told myself, my hands never stopped shaking. The tears that fell from my eyes never stopped falling. I'm sure I'll come back to you. I'll come back with the strength to fight on this island. I mumble those words over and over again in my heart. To the two men who were leaving, to the brother who drove them out of their home, to his ex-wife, who told him goodbye, and above all, to my father, who never showed his face. He said the same thing over and over again, forever and ever. 4. Chapter 3. 5 years later, G. Gah. Oh, gosh, Uck. In the dark forest, I struggled to move my leg, desperately grasping my right arm, which was about to be torn off. The pain was so intense that it was almost like I was going to lose consciousness. However, if I lose consciousness at this point, I'm sure I'll die. I'll be killed. The scream that fell from his mouth was a necessary spell for him to retain consciousness. Demen. Why is the Lord of the Flies here? The one chasing them from behind is a giant monster as long as 3 meters. It is a type of monster called the Lord of the Flies due to its appearance. In terms of simple strength, it cannot be compared to illusory species such as dragons, giants, and demon gods, but it is still a disaster monster of such a level that if it were confirmed to appear, the regular knights would be dispatched immediately. This was an opponent that a 10th level adventurer, or in other words, an adventurer who was of the lowest rank, couldn't win even if they stood on their head. Blood, sweat, tears, snot and piss. Fear turned into bodily fluids that drained from their bodies. From the outside, it must have been disgusting. I was aware of this. But the fear of being chased by a fly the size of a small mountain is indescribable. The fear of death can easily crush one's self-control. All he could do was run away, screaming like a child. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she thought to herself as she struggled to get to her feet. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she thought to herself as she tried her best to move her feet. 5 years ago, after being banished from his hometown, he became an adventurer. I was determined to be an adventurer, to defeat demons, to protect people, to make a name for myself and to gain my father's approval. If I had grown up as I had envisioned, I would have fought the Lord of the Flies with a single sword of illusion. But the reality, as always, is that the result is the exact opposite of what you expect. No, the current situation was several times worse than that. Those guys. You're a bait and switch. A different emotion than fear of the monster rises up from the back of my throat. My right arm was about to be torn off. This was not caused by a monster attack, but by human magic. The people who attacked me with the wind cutter's magic have long since disappeared. I've imagined that I might die fighting the demons, but I had never even imagined the future in which I would be killed by being used as a sesame seed. I chose the adventurer's path to gain the approval of my fathers, but that wasn't the whole reason I chose to be an adventurer. The best profession to embody the philosophy of salvation held by the illusionary Ito Ryu and to wield the sword of the Protectorate was that of an adventurer. That's why I knocked on the door of the Adventurers Guild. I wanted to be of service to the world. I wanted to be someone who could protect others. That's why I became an adventurer, and this is how it ended up. Too bad. It's just too good to be true. As I was shuffling around, I heard a terribly ominous vibrating sound from behind me. I looked at the 4 wings on the back of the Lord of the Flies and saw them flapping violently. They seemed to have gotten into trouble with their prey as they fled between the trees in the forest. Considering the balance between the demon's huge body and the 4 wings, it should be impossible for it to fly, yet the Lord of the Flies' huge body floats effortlessly in the air in my vision. The demon rushed through the unobstructed air like a cannonball. By the time I thought I had to dodge it, it was too late. A tremendous roar and impact exploded at close quarters. It pushed me away and my body flew through the air like a piece of trash. There was no sensation of fear or distress. However, the ever-present feeling of floating was terribly distressing. That sensation lasted until he was slammed into the ground. After a moment of blankness, An unbelievably intense pain coursed through my entire body. I writhed and writhed like a madman on the muddy forest soil. How long did it take for the pain to subside? Before I knew it, I found that a lot of dirt had gotten into my mouth. Ugh. He spits out a pile of dirt and stands up. But as soon as he stood up, the wound on his right arm tingled and he lost his balance. I had to fall down on the dirt I'd spat out. An unpleasant feeling of sticky residue clung to my cheek. The stench of my own spit stung my nose. What the hell? Why, DMN it. For the umpteenth time, I spewed curses all over the place. At that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine and turned around. Surprisingly close to me was the Lord of the Flies. The insect's compound eyes, devoid of any sense of purpose, were staring down at me. I was truly horrified. I realized the demon wasn't chasing its prey. It was just licking its prey. If they had intended to kill us, they would have turned us into pieces of meat long ago. The reason why the Lord of the Flies doesn't do that is because he is waiting for his prey to weaken. I suddenly remember the characteristics of demons that I had read about in a previous source. It was said that the Lord of the Flies catches humans and large beasts alive and carries them into his nest to feed his larvae. The reason why the Lord of the Flies is considered dangerous as a disaster monster is because of its incredible fertility. If an adult fly is left unchecked, it can spawn countless larvae that can destroy the local ecosystem in an instant. The ecosystems here include those of humans, and in the past a country has even been wiped out, according to the report. If they were caught by the Lord of the Flies at this point, they would have a future of being eaten alive by larvae. I want to run away, but I can't move my legs as the demon stares at me from close range. The frog itself that was stared at by the snake. Seeing this, the demon must have decided that it has weakened them sufficiently, and is slithering closer to us. A scream escapes from the back of my throat. In the next moment, the tip of the Lord of the Flies' pointed tail stabbed into my armpit. He whites his eyes around and falls down on the spot. How could this have happened? Just before I was about to let go of my consciousness, such questions flashed through my mind. 5. Chapter 4 Delisting. Dear 10th level adventurer Sola, I'm sorry, but your adventurer's license has been revoked as of today. What? 3 days before he was attacked by the Lord of the Flies, the receptionist of the Adventurers Guild fired him for his unsympathetic attitude. That day, the receptionist of the Adventurers Guild sentenced you to dismissal, sacking, in a not-so-poor manner. You can't help but open your mouth. It was so sudden that I didn't understand what was going on. You're joking, right? No, it's an official notice approved by the Guildmaster. This is the official notice. I grabbed a document carefully presented to me with a trembling hand. It did indeed contain a notice of expulsion from the 10th level adventurer Sola, and it also bore the seal of the Guildmaster. My heart ached. Why on earth? He asked himself. Why was he suddenly sentenced to be fired? He had just finished his daily routine of collecting medicinal herbs and handed in his work. I collected the prescribed amount of herbs in exactly the same way, so I have no right to be criticized for it. I have no recollection of fatal failures in other requests recently. In the first place, I haven't received any other requests other than the collection of medicinal herbs for the past few months. So why did I have to be fired? The receptionist's impassive face in front of me made me angry. She was polite, but the way the braided receptionist was looking at me was cold. The way she looked at the stones and weeds reminded me of my father. I've been a member of the guild for 5 years and I'm still stuck at the lowest rank of 10th grade. It might be inevitable that he would be taken lightly. However, revoking my adventurer status without a solid reason would be too much. I opened my mouth vigorously with the intention of shouting at him to stop fooling around. Nah, there must be some kind of mistake, right? But the words that came out were so low back that I was disgusted with myself. The young receptionist, who must not yet have crossed several decades of age, let out a small sigh. I could see inside that she was fed up with the time she spent with us. It's not a mistake. The guild rules stipulate that those who do not promote for 3 years will be expelled from the guild. In the case of Sola-sama, you were demoted 3 years ago and have remained at the 10th level since then, right? The conditions have been met. Oh, I see. I didn't know that. I mean, If you knew, you could have at least warned me. The guild's rules clearly state what I have just said. The fact that you didn't know about it is the fault of Lady Sola. The guild has no obligation to warn you. As soon as she said it, the receptionist looked me squarely in the eye for the first time. Her gaze was a mixture of anger and disdain, and she naturally tensed up. This city of Ishka gives great preferential treatment to adventurers. This is only because we need the help of adventurers to protect a city that is constantly under threat from demons. All members of our guild, whether adventurers or staff, must take this to heart, and it is their duty to work for the benefit of the Ishka. That's, well, I know. But it's not a lie. I came to this city because I heard that Ishka was that kind of city. Protecting this city from the threat of demons is good for the world and for people. You can even gain fame. What I was unable to accomplish on the island, I will accomplish in this city, and I promised myself that I would. Although now that vow is farther away than the moon in the sky, the receptionist's eyes shine coldly when she hears our words. Although you have never been promoted in 3 years. In the first place, advancing to 9th grade itself is not difficult. You know that better than anyone, Master Sora, who was promoted to 9th Kyu once 5 years ago. But, sir, I'm afraid the money's not. The fee for a promotion to grade 9 is a silver coin. Are you saying that you couldn't raise a single silver coin even if it took 3 years? While living in the meantime, enjoying the privileges afforded to adventurers? A right is only given to those who have done their duty. Even a child knows that. Whatever the case, the rules are the rules. The punishment will not be reversed. Besides, from what you've just told me, I can't help but think that Master Sora has been neglecting his duties as an adventurer for the past 3 years. The receptionist's mouth spoke in a daze, and it rained with good arguments. I couldn't even argue with her, and could only open and close my mouth meaninglessly as I gazed at her. Seeing our appearance, the receptionist must have decided this was a waste of time and continued in a terribly inorganic voice. This is the reward for today's quest. This is your reward for today's quest. Please wish you good luck in your future next time. Please wait. I was about to tell her to wait for a moment, as I was about to be forcefully dismissed from the conversation. But the receptionist didn't even look at me. The adventurers who were waiting for their turn looked at me as if to tell me to get out of the way. All of them were of higher rank and level. Their swordsmanship makes me wince. I felt deeply unhappy that I could not help but naturally smile fondly at them. It's now or never. The receptionists are popular among adventurers because of their youthful beauty. If you swear at them, the other adventurers would have the temerity to beat you to death. In the end, I had no choice but to slink away from the reception desk. Normally after completing a quest, I would head to the guild's cafeteria with my reward in hand to enjoy a glass of ale. But right now I'm not in the mood for that. No, before that. You won't give me my guild card back if you're serious about it. When I reported the completion of my request, the white and silver seal I submitted was not returned. The guild card was a guarantee of my status as an adventurer, and at the same time, it was something I was obliged to submit to exercise my rights as an adventurer. To put it simply, without it, you cannot receive the adventurer's discount. The city of Ishka, which is called both the Free City and the Adventure City, is always under threat from demons. Naturally, knights and soldiers in the service of the state protect the city, but it also relies heavily on adventurers as a fighting force, and as part of the city's policy. Preferential treatment for adventurers has been implemented. This area was just as the receptionist said. The benefits ranged from the cost of purchasing weapons and armor to daily lodging fees, and without a guild certificate, the cost of living would jump by nearly 30%. The guild card was submitted with the report of the request and returned with the reward. The fact that it wasn't returned means that the receptionist's sacking was neither a joke nor a harassment, but simply a fact. At this point, the realization of being expelled from the Adventurers Guild finally came to me. Unbeknownst to me, a shiver runs down my spine. Without a job, there would be no income. There is not much money to save. Up until now, he had been cutting down on living expenses in the guild's cafeteria and the Adventurers Inn. Even so, his daily life was uneventful, but from tomorrow, he won't even be able to do that. I left the Adventurers Guild building, stunned. It is the organization to which I belonged for 5 years. It was its last day, and yet it was not to be stopped or spared by anyone. It was a reburning of 5 years ago. I didn't know it, but a dry laugh fell from the corner of my mouth. Laughing was the only way to go. 6. Chapter 5, Talent Limit. The next day, I awoke to find myself in a room at a cheap inn with only 2 coppers and no meals. The cramped interior of the building was roughly divided into rooms with thin wooden panels, but there was no door at the entrance and the room was easily accessible from the corridor. It's a structure that can only be seen as pitting the concept of crime prevention against itself. It's not surprising or anything. But the noises in the rooms on the left and right are almost entirely uneventful. I couldn't sleep well last night because I heard the snoring of the customers in the room on the right and the charming voice of the prostitute in the room on the left. The only saving grace was that the season was spring. If it had been winter now, he would have frozen to death. That's how bad the room was. I woke up so uncomfortable that my brow naturally wrinkled. Needless to say, I didn't move to this kind of inn by choice. Until last night, I had been staying at the guild's regular inn. It's a small but clean and comfortable inn run by a stubborn master and his vivacious daughter. When I was fired from my guild, I asked the father and daughter if they could wait until next month to pay this month's rent. I've been patronizing this inn for several years now, and in the past, they've accepted the bill for lodging and meals without a single bad face. So I thought it would be fine this time, too. I slammed my fist on the floor of the room where the dirt was bare. The masters knew that we had been expelled. The guild must have sent word around. The inn's daughter, who had treated us so amiably until yesterday, said with a face that said she was refreshed. "Thank you so much for everything. Next time you come back, you should at least be able to tip." Apparently we were the only ones who felt comfortable, and the other side hated us as habitual bill payers and cheapskate customers who couldn't afford to tip. I liked the personality of my husband and daughter and kept choosing this place for a long time, but they were such clowns. It might be our fault. No, it is us. I understand that. But still, why should we be looked at as if we were stinking things? The eyes of the receptionist and the daughter of the innkeeper reminded me of the gaze I got yesterday. In a fit of rage, I punched the wall this time, and hurriedly ducked my hand. It occurred to him that his fist could break through the thin wall. If the wall was destroyed, it was obvious that he would have to pay for repairs that would cost him tens of times more than the cost of lodging. This is a foolish thing to do to reduce even the smallest of possessions. The problem is yet to come. I checked the money I had. If you put silver and copper coins together, there was enough money to somehow make ends meet for about a month. But that was after calculating the minimum amount of money for accommodation and food. Even though we wouldn't have to worry about starving today or tomorrow, it was still imperative that we improve our situation. There was plenty of work to do if he didn't choose to do daubing, sewage cleaning, construction outside the walls of the city that involved danger, but he wasn't going to do that kind of work. He would never be able to become strong if he was bored with working for his daily earnings. You won't be recognized. That's right. There's no rule that says you can't defeat demons or help people unless you belong to a guild. Even if you are collecting herbs for your daily routine, you can just bring them directly to a tool shop or apothecary without going through the guild. If you don't go through a guild, you can't avoid being watched in the purchase process, but it's still better than stealing dope or cleaning sewage. That behavior is commonly referred to as stray, Nora, adventurer, an entity that is equated with the unscrupulous and vagabonds. I knew that, but I didn't mind. It's also interesting that they're named after wild adventurers. The guild's receptionist or the inn's daughter will play an active role in making me regret cutting me. When I thought about it that way, being expelled from the guild was just like having the collar removed from my collar. The guild has never gotten along with me in the first place. I know that other adventurers and receptionists call me a parasite behind my back. This was a good opportunity for me to distance myself from those guilds and adventurers. I shake my throat with a chuckle. I shake, and then let out a sigh. I had to be aware that my thoughts were an escape from reality, and as for calling me a parasite, we weren't without responsibility. Rank, level, display, open. The magic brings up your level. The number on it is the same as usual, 1. No matter how much training or how many actual battles I have done, I cannot level up. Looking at the cursed, motionless number, my face naturally twisted. The level is the size of a person's talent. A 10th vessel can only have 10 power. If a level 1 vessel is 10, a level 2 vessel can satisfy 20, and a level 3 vessel can satisfy 30. Naturally, An adventurer who couldn't go up from level 1 would only be a drag. The level gap between us and our former adventurers was so wide that we were embittered. To put it more bluntly, I was kicked out of the party just as I was separated from my brother, Lagana, and my ex-wife, Ayaka. On my home island, I was left behind by my friends here as well. Generally speaking, there are many ways for people to raise their levels, but when it comes to those who made their living fighting, the key to raising your level is to fight a stronger opponent. It doesn't matter how many times you defeat monsters that you can beat, your level will not improve, no matter how many times you defeat them. On the contrary, weaker people have that much more opportunity to improve their level. It is easier for the first level human to level up than other humans. However, they had never been able to level up, not even once on the island or in the city. This was ludicrous for anyone to hear, but as a matter of fact, there was a theory that could explain this phenomenon. Talent limits. Humans had limits. 300 years ago, it was said that the Sword Sage who had sealed off the demon god had raised his level to 99, but he couldn't inevitably raise anything above that. Since even the Sword Sage had a limit, there was no reason for any other person to not have a limit. And just as there are 10 different ways for people to rise in level, there are 10 different talent limits. In other words, it's no wonder that there are people for whom level 1 is the limit. For those of us who can't raise our level, talent limits are synonymous with despair. But it wasn't without hope. The talent limit is not a definite theory. Even if you use magic, the only thing that can be confirmed is your current level. I've heard that a higher-ranked magician can see more detailed information. But even that magic doesn't confirm the existence of talent limits. No one knows if the cause of the lack of level improvement is talent limits or lack of experience. On the island, those who have not completed the trial rite cannot participate in a real battle. So, if you become an adventurer and experience a real battle, your level will go up. I believed that at the time. However, the reality was ruthless. It didn't matter how many demons and thieves I killed, my level never went up. The same enemies, the same quests, the same food, and the same friends are fighting the same enemies and doing the same quests and eating the same food, but their levels are increasing. The gap in power is opening up. Level figures are important personal information, and even among my friends, I don't talk about it casually. However, the other members of the team are not afraid to reveal their levels to each other. So, it's natural that those who are tight-lipped about their levels will stand out. Thinking it was only a matter of time before they got suspicious of me, I chose a day to confide in my party members. I had a reasonably good relationship with the members, and I could say that I was friends with the leader. So I had the hope that maybe they would show understanding. But the response was a scathing rebuke. I was called a fraud to my face and expelled from the party. They were called parasites, and the other adventurers began to look at them with contempt. Undoubtedly, it was spread by the original members. The act of a low-level adventurer sneaking into a high-level party by hiding it is called parasitism and is frowned upon. Malicious cases would be punished by the guild. Although I was not punished at that time, the people around me were looking at me the same way they would look at a criminal. With the spread of the parasite's notoriety, it was widely known that he was level 1 and probably reached his talent limit. That was 4.5 years ago. Since then, I've been working exclusively as a solo adventurer. There is no way that any curious person would want to form a party with a level 1 parasitic adventurer. There are only so many quests you can take on as a solo player, and even those few quests are paid in copper coins. Funds are scarce, and without them, there is no way to buy all the armor and tools, and so, the number of requests I can receive is decreasing. 3 years ago, I was demoted from the 9th level because the amount of money paid to the guild is lower for the 10th level. The reason I stayed at the 9th level for a year and a half, even if it was only for a while, was because I thought it would be easier to form a party at the 9th level than at the 10th. There was also a kind of stubbornness to the surroundings. It was 3 years ago that I could no longer afford to be so stubborn. If you are relegated to 10th grade, the range of requests you can receive will be reduced, but in any case, the only ones you can receive solo are 10th grade ones, so there was no problem. After that, I didn't have the energy or the financial wherewithal to move up to 9th Kyu again, so I was expelled from the guild yesterday. That was the end result of this time. 7. Episode 6 Past Party Story. Hey, dude, you wanna join our party? It was about a month after he started as an adventurer in the city of Ishka when he was approached by such a solicitor. A boy of the same age called himself Lars. He was fed up with the bad life in the countryside, so he decided to become an adventurer in search of fame and fortune. The boy had a broad-minded, good-natured smile on his face, saying that it was a common reason. "Hey, it's rude to call someone you've never met you." The girl who chided Lars for saying that was named Ilya. She was a childhood friend of Lars, and was skilled at fighting and recovery magic, which she had learned from her mother, a priest warrior. As for Ilya, wealth and fame were secondary to her wealth and fame, and she seemed to be accompanying Lars as his chaperone after he ran away from the village. With his strong-looking hanging eyes and long black hair tied up in a ponytail, he looked a bit like his former ex-wife. "If you're going to call me rude, isn't it much more rude to start a fight instead of soliciting?" A pointy hat and a staff. A girl dressed as a sorcerer in every way possible lets out a disgusted sigh. The name of the girl with flaming red hair and freckles is Miroslav. She seems to come from a pretty good family. The robe she wears is made of silk, and her staff is a large magic stone. She also wore other expensive-looking earrings and bracelets. "Ladies and gentlemen, please calm down. This person is in trouble too, right?" The long-eared girl who looked at the three of them with a troubled look on her face and chastised them for their quarrelsome argument was Luna Maria. She was an elf. She was a gifted hunter and spirit user, and even had the qualification of a sage. As of 5 years ago, Lars and Ilya were 13 years old and Miroslav was 14. In such a too-young party, the elven girl was a pillar in many ways, yet the age of the person in question was a secret. They called themselves the Sword of Hayabusa. They were G-ranked, that is to say, a new party that had just formed, and they were apparently looking for members who could serve as the vanguard. To tell the truth, I refused the offer at first. I was happy to be invited, but the memory of my dry separation from my ex-wife, Ayaka, and the others was still fresh in my mind, and I was feeling something close to fear of working with others. But Lars was eagerly inviting him to join them. "There, somehow. I saw you, not you, pretending to be something you're not at the guild's training camp the other day." For hours on end, he wielded his sword without a break, and I thought it was so beautiful. In the end, we were defeated by Lars, who was pushing us hard like that. No, we made it look like we were defeated, but in truth, we were happy to have them say that much. The adventure with them was honestly fun. But that fun only lasted for 6 months, though. As I mentioned above, I was kicked out of the party. Miroslav called me a fraud to my face, and Ilaria lashed out with a sharp rebuke. Lars was miffed and silent, but there was an unconcealed disappointment in his eyes as he looked at us. Only Luna Maria did not try to condemn us, but the sympathy and pity she directed at us touched us far more deeply than the words and actions of the other three. After that, as if to relieve the resentment that had been stagnant until then, the Sword of Hayabusa quickly rose through the ranks of the party, and now, 5 years later, it has reached the C rank. My former friends are now the best adventurers in the world. When you are based in the same city, you may run into them. "What are you doing here?" 3 days after being banished from the Adventurers Guild, I was in the forest of Titus, gathering herbs as usual when I was unexpectedly approached by a voice behind me. As he was gathering herbs in the forest of Titus as usual, he was suddenly approached by a voice from behind. The voice, full of disgust and contempt, was familiar. When I turned round, I saw the person I had expected to see standing there. When I furrowed my eyebrows, the other person put his hands on his hips and averted his chest. Apostrophe. "What's with that face? If you have something to say, why don't you say it back? We've already reached the limit of our talents, but let's listen to this con artist who has been hiding it and parasitizing us for 6 months." A girl holding a staff and wearing a pointy hat. She looks like a magician. Her hair is flaming red from the hat, and she is glaring at you with glaring topaz eyes. Miroslav, the sorcerer from the Falcon Blade. The girl who once worried about her freckles has grown into a fragrant beauty over the past 5 years. However, no matter how beautiful she became, she would never be attractive if she was so blatantly belittled. Thinking about this, Miroslav snorted and laughed. "You can't say anything? I'm sure you are. It's not slander that I'm talking about, it's the truth." Miroslav tried to continue with more words, and then a voice stopped her from doing so. "Milo, let's leave it at that." It was Lars who interrupted to say that. He was the leader of the C-ranked party Hayabusa's Sword of Hayabusa, and as an individual he had reached the 6th level at the age of 18. Both of them were in the realm of veterans with more than 10 years of adventuring experience, and Lars, who had accomplished this only 5 years ago, before the age of 20, was renowned as an up-and-coming adventurer. We became adventurers at the same age and at the same time, and yet I noticed that the gap between us had widened considerably. Lars glanced at me. There was no trace of the smile he once had on his face, which had a faintly curved lip. I heard you were fired from the guild, Sola. Yeah, you're still on the same level, right? The fact that you're here means you're still planning to continue your adventurer's business. But you should quit now. It's too late for that, if something happens. Thank you for the advice, he replied unenthusiastically to the frowning advice. Then the dark-haired beauty standing next to Lars opened her mouth, her brows wrinkled. Hey, what's your attitude when Lars has been advising you for so long? It was Ilya in a white bodysuit. She had always been a girl with a good nose, but like Miroslav, she had become surprisingly beautiful over the course of 5 years. It seems to be the same as 5 years ago, though, where only Lars is in her eyes. I'm sorry. You're still so uncharacteristically unchallenged. I thought you were a little better when I met you. Okay, Ilaria. It's none of our business anymore. He's going to get what he deserves if he dies without listening to us. Lars is right. Let's leave these people alone and get into the forest quickly. I don't know if it's my imagination, but I smell like a vagrant who hasn't had a bath in 3 days around here. Hey Milo, you weren't the one who approached me in the first place. Saying whatever they wanted, Lars and the others disappeared into the forest. One person who remained here was the elven Luna Maria. It's good to see you looking well, Sora-san. Then she bowed her head with a smile. The gentle smile she gave me seemed to be the same as in the past. The fact that the elves are exceptionally good-natured. Luna Maria is an exceptionally good-natured member of the elven tribe, and she served as a lubricant for the party, sometimes chastising and sometimes soothing Ilaria and Miroslav, who were repeatedly fighting with each other over Lars. During their time in the Falcon Blade, they had been close to each other in the detailed preparations and transactions, and to be honest, he was attracted to her as a member of the opposite sex. Although, after realizing that her gaze was following Lars as well as the other two, he carefully kept those feelings to himself. She was someone who didn't change her attitude even when she hadn't leveled up and was on the verge of becoming a liability in the party, which I was very grateful for at the time. Though that appreciation has been blown away now. After being kicked out of the party, I overheard a conversation at a bar I frequented, which led to a member's conversation. It was this elf who gave people the malicious nickname Parasite. He responded briefly to the other's greeting with a thank you and then turned his back to Luna Maria as if refusing to have any further dialogue. I can feel a hint of confusion from behind me, but I don't care. I don't want to have a conversation out of pity and a sense of duty. Never mind the Parasite, just go to your favorite Lars. That's what I thought with all my heart. However, our intentions didn't seem to be conveyed, and a bell-waving voice came from behind me. I heard that a number of people have gone missing in the Forest of Tatters for the past few days. Sola-san, please be careful. Missing? I couldn't help but look back over my shoulder at the unexpected content. Then Luna Maria nodded with a slightly relieved face. The Forest of Tatters is so vast that it could swallow an entire country, and there are even rumors that the deepest part of the forest is inhabited by an illusory species. Because it's such a place, there are not a few cases of adventurers who stepped into the forest and never returned. However, even taking this into account, the number of missing people in the last few days seems to be extraordinary. Moreover, among those who have gone missing is a C-ranked party, just like the one in Falcon Sword, and the guild has decided to dispatch a higher-ranked party to investigate the cause of the disappearance. The Sword of Falcon is said to be one of them. The forest right now is dangerous, so be careful. Luna Maria advises me to do so. To be honest, I wanted to say that it was none of my business, but I was aware that this was indeed a narrow-minded thing to do. So, I briefly thanked him. I understand. Thank you for your advice. You're welcome. Well, I'll leave you to it. As Luna Maria said this, she disappeared into the depths of the forest after her friends. Relieved that the unwanted meeting with my former companions was over, I resumed gathering herbs. The matter of the missing person informed by Lunamaria was worrisome, but there would be no need to be so vigilant in the outer perimeter, let alone if we were to step deep into the forest. Rather, if the number of adventurers approaching the forest due to this matter decreased, the price of the medicinal herbs would increase. This is the kind of hope that crosses my mind. That's how much this matter was a stranger to me. The fact that Lars and his friends who were attacked by the Lord of the Flies would return with a demon in tow was not to be expected. Moreover, there was no way to predict that Miroslav would launch a magical attack towards us to distract the demons from the injured Lars. 8. Chapter 7, Raw Bait. This is when I came to. I found myself lying in the middle of nowhere. I had been prepared to never wake up again, and the hope that I might have been saved crossed my mind. It was too dark to grasp the situation, but at least there was no sign of the Lord of the Flies. Relieved at that fact, I tried to raise my upper body. However, I couldn't move my body. A strong numbness hindered the movement of his arms and legs. He could barely move his arms and legs from the neck up, but he couldn't move a single finger satisfactorily from the neck down. I was horrified by a sensation I'd never felt before. Speaking of horrifying, what is this sound coming from somewhere? The sound of something hard being crushed with a crunch. The sound of something soft and squishy being chewed. The sound of slurping something sticky and sticky. For some reason, the sound gave me a chill. The fact that he couldn't see anything made him feel more fearful. I tried desperately to move my body away from the source of the sound, but my numb body wouldn't budge. And that's when it happened. A light suddenly shone in my field of vision, which had been shrouded in darkness. It was the moonlight pouring down from overhead. In the moonlight, the full extent of my current location is revealed. A huge space that could easily fit into a small mansion. There are no signs of human intervention on the rugged rock surface, and it seems to be a natural cave. However, even though it was a cave, there was no doorway in sight. If I wanted to get out of the cave, I would have to go through a hole in the ground above my head. The hole looks small when you look up at it like this, but it is quite far from the ground. But this is because it is a long way from the ground. Unless you have the ability to fly, it would be difficult to get in and out of the hole freely. This means that the person using this place is a being that has the ability to fly and also needs such a huge hole to get in and out. In other words, Lord of the Flies. I groan. The hope that I might have been saved spills out of my chest like sand. No, more importantly, the fact that this is the Lord of the Flies' nest means that the sound I've been hearing from earlier is the one I've been hearing. Fearfully, he moved his head only to look in that direction. I knew I would regret it if I saw it, but I couldn't choose not to look. And then, as I expected, regret set in. Hi. One adventurer was there. He was probably one of the missing adventurers that Lunamaria had mentioned. He was in a horrible shape. Both arms were missing above the elbows, close to the shoulders. Both legs were missing above the knees, up to the thighs. Countless maggots were attached to the wounds, where white bones and reddish-brown flesh were exposed. Countless maggots, ranging from fist-sized to fingertip-sized, gathered at the wound as if they were competing with each other, chewing the bones, eating the flesh and sipping the blood. He. And that's not all that was horrifying. The adventurer was flooding his nose, his mouth and his ears with maggots the size of a grain of rice. Only his eyes were safe. That was the next moment. Their eyes met. In the height of fear and despair, with the light on the verge of insanity, however, the other side was certainly aware of our presence. The proof of this is that the adventurer's eyes widened and he opened his mouth to say something. Although what came out of their mouths were not words, but a large number of maggots. They are alive. They have had their limbs eaten, their noses, mouths and ears raped, but they are still conscious. The Lord of the Flies catches his prey alive and brings them back to his nest to feed his larvae. The larvae of the Lord of the Flies then slowly chew the raw food as if it were dissolving, so as not to kill them. The information I had read in the documents was unmistakable. The horrific scene in front of me was none other than my own slightly future self. The moment I recognized that fact, unable to bear it, he screamed out. As if it was a signal, the surrounding maggots leapt at him all at once. 9. Episode 8. The Meaning of the Sky. I hated the name Sora. Every time they called my name, I felt like they were telling me that I was empty. No, I was actually told that at the time. It was when I lost to my younger brother, Lagana, at dojo practice. I could have put up with it if it had come from him, but it was other classmates besides Lagana who had said it to me. It's not the sky, it's the sky, isn't it? It's empty. An empty weakling is a legitimate son. I feel sorry for Lagana too. By all accounts, Lagana is better than you. I was 7 years old. The gap between me and Lagana, Ayaka, and the rest of my peers was becoming apparent, and the eyes of the people around me, especially my father, were beginning to turn cold. He taunted my mother. Why did you give me this name? It was nothing more than taking it out on her, but she couldn't help herself. My mother took my wretched son in her arms and took him out into the courtyard. My mother was a very sickly person. She had always been physically weak, but after she had given birth to a child, the weakness became especially pronounced, and she spent the middle of the year in bed. Her own room, the mansion, and the courtyard. That was my mother's whole world. I don't know if that's why my mother loved to look at the sky. She loved to see clear skies. She loved a cloudy sky. I loved the morning sky, and I loved the sunset sky. I loved rainy skies, even though I laughed a little bit that I hated rainy days because I wouldn't be able to walk in the garden. Still, I could tell from the look on my mother's face as she looked up at the rain clouds that she loved it more. Wherever and whenever you look up, it's there. She shows me many different faces. My loved ones who are far away from me are also looking up at the same sky. We are connected under the same sky. If I think of it that way, I don't feel lonely. My mother told me that because she loved to look at the sky, the first thing she thought of when she had her child was the name of the sky. I hope he will be as big as the sky. I hope you will be as big as this sky. And also, Sora. She smiled mischievously at her son, who was still crying even after hearing her mother's story. The word empty doesn't have a bad meaning. If you are nothing, you can be anything. From now on, pack as much as you can inside of you and become the person you want to be. Whatever it is, I will bless the path you have chosen, she said. Ha ha ha. That's what I call a running mate. The nest of the Lord of the Flies. I grumbled with a half smile as I slithered on the ground like a caterpillar. It's a terrible thing to remember the last time I talked to my mother in this situation, when all chance of survival was gone. I have to tell my mother, who told me that you can be anything you want to be, that I'm bug bait. Oh, how unbecoming. I looked down at my body, moving only my face. His right arm, which had been torn open by Miroslav's magic, had been bitten off by the maggots in the wound. I'm sure that the maggots have been devouring the torn-off parts without a drop of blood. Both of his toes were already gone, and his left arm was missing from his wrist. I could feel the maggots, which had entered my body through the wounds, biting into the bones of my limbs with a rattling sound. Normally, she would be in agony from the intense pain, rolling over in a heap. It's not surprising that I would go mad or even die of shock, but I still kept my sanity. There was no pain. On the contrary, every time the body is eaten, a sensation similar to pleasure runs up and down my spine. Perhaps it is the ability of this bug. Just as a mosquito injects pain-suppressing liquid when it sucks blood, the maggots release something that blocks the sensation of pain when they eat flesh and blood. As a result, they are alive in a situation where they could be dead. We are being forced to experience the fear of being eaten alive. Before I knew it, I noticed that maggots the size of a pea grain were gathering around my face. Ku, don't come here. The only free-moving head is swung around to check the approaching bugs. Then the maggots quickly moved away, and soon they came inching closer again. Either they are waiting for us to weaken, or they are playing with their weakened raw food. Either way, I was sure that these worms instinctively knew that the food was better when it was alive. Otherwise, they would have been devoured to the bone long ago. There were enough maggots in the cave to ensure that less than 10% of the total number of maggots were now flying around. If all the larvae here hatched and became the Lord of the Flies, not only the city of Issaquah, but the entire Canary Kingdom would be destroyed. Then the swarm of the Lord of the Flies would swell in number even more and attack the neighboring Ad Astra Empire, where they would be annihilated by the Imperial Swordsmen and their one-handed wielders of illusion. The fact that the human named Mitsurugi Sora was used as bait by the Lord of the Flies would melt into the soil without anyone knowing. The people's cheers of praise for the swordsman, his father and the wielders of the Itoryu style of illusion echoed above the soil. When I think of this, fear and anger, frustration and despair well up in me like a gush of water. Physical wounds are fatal. You just don't feel the pain. but the lost flesh and blood has definitely reached a lethal level. Even if help were to come to this place now, the chances of survival were zero. In the unlikely event that there was a priest among the rescue members who could use the magic of complete healing, or if there is an adventurer who has the elixir, he may be able to save his life. But only life can be saved. The lost limbs will never return. I hear that the Pope of the Holy Kingdom in the south can use the miracle of restoration, but such a miracle is no more than a miracle for a single adventurer, or even a person who is not an adventurer. You will never be able to hold a sword again. I'll never be able to walk on my own feet again. This body that was empty, is determined to die empty. In desperation, he shouted like a madman. Move off, get off me. Don't eat any more. I don't want to die here. I don't want to die. He moves his head wildly, screams in anger, and tries to get rid of the bugs that are still chewing on his body. But the paralysis caused by the Lord of the Flies is so powerful that no matter how much time passes, he cannot move his head. I must have been ranting and raving for about 3 minutes. I put my face to the ground with all my strength. He groaned as he felt the cold earth on his cheek. Deminute ... Why is this happening to me? If only I had given up on adventurers as soon as I was expelled from the guild. If I had followed Lars and the others' advice, I wouldn't have had to go through this. But that would mean throwing away my 5 years as an adventurer down the drain. No, was it a mistake to become an adventurer 5 years ago in the first place? If I had chosen a different path instead of choosing an adventurer when I was banished from the island, if I had followed Ayaka's advice and let go of the sword, I'm sure I wouldn't have wasted 5 years of my life. But but that would have made that vow a lie. My mother, who collapsed while practicing in the dojo, had already passed away when I ran home, out of breath. He made a vow to himself to hold on to that scar. He vowed to become as big as the sky, as his mother had hoped. That was the vow I made. It was synonymous with becoming the heir to a worthy swordsman's family. It's not just a matter of how much time you have left, it's also a matter of how much time you have left. It was a vow to become a person like my father, whom my mother loved. It was to fulfill this vow that I chose to become an adventurer after being exiled from the island. I was supposed to be a nobody, and I could become a nobody. So I became an adventurer. For 5 years I worked hard. I tried to be just like my father. And then, one day, I would be proud to visit my mother's grave. And this is how he ended up, to be eaten by maggots. What do you mean? You're joking. You're not trying to do that. And for that, I didn't live to see this day for that. It was when he exploded with words of helpless regret. Suddenly, the movements of the polys around them changed. They rushed in with a creepy sound and one after another jumped at his face. DMN it, stop it, don't come here. He tries desperately to get rid of it by shaking his face. But the maggots never gave up and stuck to her face one after another. However, the polyps did not give up and kept on clinging to her face, one after another. It was clear that the polyps were invading my ears and my nose. The momentum is greater than ever before. It must have decided that we couldn't survive any longer. This is the most delicious time. Let's devour it to our heart's content. I could certainly feel that kind of intent from the maggots. At last, it almost entered my mouth and desperately pulled my lips together. The eyes are almost eaten, and I close my eyelids tightly. But it ate through my lips, bitten off my eyelids, and I raised my voice unvoiced. Did she want to scream in anger, ask for help, or ask for forgiveness? He continued to scream without knowing whether he was screaming for help or forgiveness. I knew there was no way anyone would listen to me, but I just kept screaming. And then I heard a voice. There was a response that should not have been there, but it was there. 10 Chapter 9 The same origin exists. The maggots never stop moving, being eaten, bitten, chewed, and soothed. The body disappears as if it were melting. They're crumbling. I can't stop. It's unstoppable. The sound that echoes in the cave with the creaking is surely the joyful voice of the bugs. Quertic. The body is being consumed. Like pulling pieces out of a completed puzzle piece by piece. The sensations in the body disappear. Sindissimo. If I don't do this, I'll die. No, I'm long gone. You can't save yourself now. Akira Melnoka. I've given up on it a long time ago. I'm sure I've given up a long time ago. I'm not going to be the only one. Chichni, Okada. Yeah, it's silly. But what else can you do but give up in this situation? Kra. What? Kra. You want some? What about this little maggot? Sauda, what would be the point of living like that? You can't save yourself anymore anyway. In the first place, even if we ate the dozens that got into our mouths, it wouldn't stop hundreds of them from accumulating on our bodies. Even if we managed to eat a few hundred of them, thousands of maggots would still be lodged in the cave. You can't do anything about it. I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. I don't want to be eaten. I don't want to die. But I can't help it. So what can I do? We don't need to be weak. You're right. I wasn't needed on the island, and I wasn't needed in the city. I don't need you as a swordsman, and I don't need you as an adventurer, and I don't need you as a swordsman. My father could not have been more right. Yes, I'm afraid so. Annoying. Nandigashanova, Shikaiha, Walordro. No, I won't laugh. I'm sure he wouldn't even change his expression when he heard his son's last words. Because to my father, he is as good as dead when he disowned me. But yeah, I'm sure Agana would laugh. Ayaka, Gus, Cecil, and the rest of his students would also laugh impatiently. That's the extent of Mikanzora's character. After all, the same must be true of the guys from the Hayabusa Sword, the guild's receptionist, and the innkeeper's father and daughter. I'm sure they are all the same. I'm not going to let them have their way with me to my deathbed just because I can't save myself. I'll take the Lord of the Flies child as my companion, even if it's only 10 or 20. Fortunately, his mouth works. I've still got teeth. I can easily crush a maggot. Naraba, Klai. Yeah, we'll eat it. If we're going to die, let's struggle until we die. Sauda. If we're going to struggle, let's just eat them all. If you do that, you'll be able to survive. A few dozen crows, hundreds of them, or thousands of them, are not so bad. You can't get away with it. You can die, Quarit, or you can eat me alive. I don't have a choice. Oh, why is it so hard to notice something so simple? You have to die, Amethyst. It's not just the maggots. All those who have mocked me, despised me, betrayed me. Walia, Nanji. Once you're done, you're good to go. Yes, that's right. I must have learned a lot in the 18 years since we got here. Nanjiha, I'm sorry. Mithruja Sola can do nothing. She can neither fight nor protect. Wera, Dojanisht, Sujitari. Neltehum? What kind of a man can't even keep his mother's vows? What can I do to help you, Nanti? I don't know what to do. Yes, it's a very good idea. Kare, Shinzu, Reikajulu. After a conversation with a thing that I don't know anyone from anywhere, my consciousness emerged into reality. Finally, I saw a strange sight. As far as the eye can see, the desolate land is nothing but stone and dirt. There was only one tree, a huge, towering, majestic tree. It was an oak tree, and its massive, mountain-like body crouches down to protect the oak. No matter who you look at it, this huge beast, wrapped in black scales that remind you of the darkness of night, is a dragon. An illusory species among the strongest illusory species in this world. He must have noticed the gaze. I'm not going to be able to get a good idea of what to expect. I'm not sure what the expression of the dragon is. I don't understand the dragon's words. I'm sure you'll be able to find a way to make it work. I'm sure you'll be able to find the right one for you. I'm not going to be able to get it right. The name is 11 Episode 10 Soul Eater. If I had to put the feeling into strong words, it was as if I had swallowed the sun. Scream. I scream. I scream. It's hot. Hot. Hot 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 hot. His whole body is on fire. The whole body is covered with hot oil. Bones. The bones are on fire. Flesh. The flesh is boiling. All the blood in my body is turning into boiling water, running at high speed from head to toe. If it doesn't, it will burst. I'm bursting like a water balloon pinched by needles. This heat boiling inside your body. I need to release this power that's raging inside my body. If I don't release this power even for a second, my Kenkyu's body will turn into a piece of meat and scatter to the four winds. Scream, scream, scream. I know how. I may not know why, but I do. How to release your power, how to give form to your power. I know for certain the power of this illusion in my body. We are like one and the same source. The power that had been raging in disorder is given a directionality. In the outstretched hand, the raging power, like a torrent, is bundled together into a black glow, thin and long, sharp and strong. Apostrophe Shinzu excitation. It is a fierce black treasure sword, the manifestation of the sun-eating eclipse. In the age of mythology, he slaughtered the 17 gods of war and is the strongest and oldest species of illusion. The name is Eat It All Up, Soletta. At that moment, a flash of blackness that swallowed even the light of the stars covered the cave. How long did it take for the moonlight to come overhead again? The black flash faded and I was standing alone in the cave, breathing hard and gasping. Yes, I was standing. Both of my legs, which should have been eaten by the maggots, had regenerated down to the tips of my fingers and toes. It was the same with both arms, and the right arm that should have been torn off and devoured had also been restored. It was a strange sensation to see an arm that had been torn off once move as it was intended. And that arm is clenched tightly around a sword. The sword, which is dyed black from the tip of the handle to the brim, as if the darkness of night had been kneaded together, was surprisingly comfortable in the hand. The blade is also black. However, the blade was the color of blood that dripped down. I stared at the blade. An intimidating feeling that tingles and makes my skin tingle. A sense of elation that sends shivers down my spine. The memory remains. So I know what this is. No, even if I had no memory, I would have understood it by instinct. That this is my mind's clothing. Solita, the soul-eating dragon. Huh? There was no voice to respond to my tweeting. But as if to congratulate me for having mastered the mind attire, the black sword reflected the moonlight in a small gleam. The fact that the gleam was the color of venomous fresh blood is a charming thing. Suddenly, something moved in his vision. I saw that a maggot the size of a child's head was trying desperately to get away from me. If you look closely, you can see the same type of fleeing bugs buzzing here and there. The group that had been battling against my body seems to have disappeared with the black flash, but there are still a lot of maggots living in this cave. If they all attacked together, they would be a serious threat, but the other side didn't seem to have any intention of doing so. I'm sure they instinctively understand that they can't do it. Or perhaps they simply don't have any offensive power against an outside enemy that isn't paralyzed. A creature that lays a lot of eggs is that much more targeted by foreign enemies, or is it? It reminds me of a characteristic of the creature that Lunameria told me about when it was. She said that the reason it lays so many eggs is because no individual can survive to adulthood unless it lays that many eggs, or something like that. When I think about it, the Lord of the Flies, who lays thousands of eggs, may have a hard time in the natural world. When the Fly King returns to find all his children wiped out after all that hard work, he must be very sad. A bouncy laugh falls out of my mouth. If I hadn't been caught by the Lord of the Flies, I wouldn't have been able to dress in my mind. In a sense, I'm a benefactor. No, I'm a benefactor. Well, it doesn't matter either way. With all the gratitude and rage that comes from the bottom of my heart, I'm going to beat every single one of his kids to death now. If it's true, I should think of a way out of here or something, but that'll have to wait until later. The despair I felt earlier hasn't faded yet. The fear of being eaten alive is still fresh in my mind. That's why the feeling of revenge was so special. It's a pity that you can't hear the words of the fleeing bugs. Let's start with the one nearest to us. All right. The moment I cut the larger polyps, a strange sound leaked out of my mouth. If there were people here, I am sure they would have laughed with their stomachs in their hands. That's how silly the voice was. Hey, what was that? The moment I cut it off, a hell of a sensation ran through my body. Like when you used to console yourself with this. What was that all about? I was surprised, but that didn't change what I was going to do. I set my sights on the next maggot and swung my black sword down again. I was able to keep the strange noises down more than I did earlier because of my anticipation. What's a maggot doing in death? There's nothing real harmful about it, though. I turn it off. A poke. Okay, poke. Much. I'm going to cut this off. I'm getting used to it. After a few repetitions, I got used to the pleasant sensation. Suddenly it occurred to me to step on a small maggot with my foot and crush it. But I discouraged myself. It is indeed hard to step on it with bare feet. You may be told what you're talking about when you chewed to death with your mouth as hard as you could. Okay, that's it. I grabbed a handful of stones and tried to crush them with it. But it didn't give me that pleasant sensation. To be sure, I crushed another 5 or so of a different size, but the result was the same. The next time I killed them with the black sword, The pleasant sensation returned. It's not like the maggots are doing anything in death. Is this a mind-dressing ability? So it's not so bad, I guess. Unfortunately, there are no instructions for use, so we can only find out how to use it and its effects by groping for it. For now, the first thing to do is to take revenge on the maggots who devoured people so much. I cut up the bugs I see, one after the other, humming to myself. 30 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours. No matter how long it goes on, I never get tired of it. Then, when I had cut about 300 fish, I felt a strong shock to my body. It was a different sensation from anything I had ever felt before. It was as if I was washing my body from the inside out, or as if my body was being rebuilt from scratch. A strange sensation. It was a sensation I had never experienced before in my life. I have a premonition, and I opened my mouth. A shaky voice checked the level. Then, there was a number displayed that I had never seen before. 2. It is indeed marked as such. A level that has never been raised before has certainly been raised. Whoa, 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 whoa. A gut punch popped out of my mouth. Then I'm sure of it. My mind dressing increases the efficiency of acquiring experience value. No. This is not at that level. The mind suit is taking away something more than experience value. That is the root of life, which should be called the soul. Just like the name soul eating. My level, which had never risen before, has risen. I'm sure that the one soul that my mind suit took away was comparable to the 100 experience points other adventurers had gained. No, not even 100. It's not even 100, it's 1,000, maybe even 10,000. Anyway, it would be safe to say that he would gain a wonderfully high level of experience. The pleasant sensation you've been feeling for a while now must be a kind of overreaction of your body and mind to the experience you've gained. My vessel, body, is being surprised by the sudden pouring of pure experience value into it. If only it turned out that way. I look around with glazed eyes. Those maggots are still stirring everywhere. With this, there's no shortage of people to cut. Now, let the experience gaining begin. 12 Episode 11 King of the Flies. She had no name. Humans called her the Lord of the Flies, but that name had no value. It did not matter to the creature that fed it what it called itself. It did not matter to the girl. However, it was another thing to underestimate them. She was cautious. Sometimes she was cautious to the point of cowardice. That is why she was able to survive until she became an adult. In the Forest of Titus, the power of the Lord of the Flies ranks high. If he fought, he could defeat most opponents. But that was only after he became an adult. Until she became an adult, she lived as the hunted rather than the hunted. Her main source of food was the carcasses of other creatures. Left-over food from other creatures. All of them were awful, but they were not fatal. They risked their lives to hunt, and if they became the bait, they would be lost. The countless number of brothers and sisters he had was dwindling as time went on, and before he knew it, there was only her. But I found it easier to do that. How many times had I almost died because of my brothers and sisters who didn't understand the danger? I'm not going to be the only one. She thought so. In fact, she survived the dangerous Forest of Titus until she was an adult, and she was lucky enough to find a mate. She had many children. If she had children, she would have to find creatures to feed them. She was determined. She was determined to get rid of the resentment she had been running and hiding from. Now, again, she was carrying a human woman she had caught in the forest, and she was pouring poison into her. The last time I fed her, it was a human man with tough meat. Some of the children like it, but most of them prefer the soft human woman. Today, she was happy because she was able to catch that woman. However, the number of humans coming into the forest had decreased over the past few days, so there would be more days in the future when the hunt would not go well. That was the only thing that was depressing. These days, the kids are getting older and it's not easy to secure food. It would be easier if they were satisfied with the insects and beasts in the forest, but for some reason they prefer humans. Perhaps it's not so much the taste, but the reaction they get when they eat it that is interesting. She also remembered this point. Unfortunately, she's mother is a messy woman, and all she does is eat bad bugs, and dead ones. She was the kind of parent who kept on giving her children a gift, though her needs were rarely satisfied. Her first thought was that she would not be like this if she became a mother. Therefore, she couldn't cut corners when gathering food. So she returned to the nest in a good mood, but as soon as she saw the entrance, She had a bad feeling, something she had long since forgotten since she became an adult, a sense of imminent danger. She had followed this feeling, and it had kept her alive until today. But today, I couldn't follow it. The reason is that this sense of danger originates from her nest. Her nest is located in the depths of the Titus forest. The entrance is on a high cliff. It's not easy to get close to foreign enemies who are looking for children. However, that's not the case with enemies that can fly, so whenever she sees a foe of that kind, she actively knocks them down. Thanks to this, there are no foreign enemies in this area that aim their nests from the sky. Therefore, there should be no danger. She vibrated her wings finely and rubbed her 8 legs together diligently. If it were a human being, he or she would be shaking with cold sweat all over. Not good. Not good. This isn't good. His instincts were ringing alarm bells. Leave now. If you go in, you will die. But she went into the nest. And she's not letting go of her bait. There are children here. There are hungry, lovely children waiting for new food. When you return, they will come running back to you, as usual, to claim their hunger. They will come. No, he must come. Why have the children not shown up? Why is it so quiet in the nest? Ha ha. I don't know why you're so effing angry. If you can understand this situation, you must have some intelligence after all. Shut up. Do you understand? I cut all your kids. It was so noisy. But I'm sure she was crying out for her mother to be saved. Shut up. But alas, your mother wasn't able to make it. It's a shame. If we'd come back another quarter hour, 30 minutes, earlier, we could have saved at least 50 of them. Shut up. Well, if I did, I'd just kill the whole mother. Ha 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 ha. Thank you, Lord of the Flies. I've gone from level 1 to level 4, thanks to you guys. It was a really good hunting ground. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Don't let your bait get in the way. I'm going to be there. As she haphazardly thrust the woman she had captured into a corner of the cave, she let out a silent roar and vibrated her 4 wings violently. Then, like a gust of wind, she rushed towards the human. When I caught this human, I wasn't able to react to this attack at all. Back then, I deliberately missed my aim to capture him alive, but there was no need for me to do that now. I'll kill you. A tremendous rush. The speed of the cave, which is not very wide, cannot be controlled, and she crashed into the wall with a roaring sound. The long cave shook and the crumbling wall surface turned into earth and sand that rained down on her head. But as the Lord of the Flies, it's not even close to being a mosquito bite. I'm sure you'll be able to find out what's going on in the world. It is possible to injure a person with higher level magic, but it's not easy to catch the Lord of the Flies with his agile aerial maneuvers. With its sturdy and unmatched body, a human being would be shattered into pieces of flesh. I'm sure that the same must have happened to that human being. That's when she was convinced. Too bad, it's a miss. An unpleasant voice came from behind her. When she turned around with the touch of her forehead stretched out with a bottle, the human who should have been shattered was standing there leisurely. Ha ha, my body is light and light. Compared to this, yesterday I was like a man in lead armor. Come again when you're frustrated. It'll be good practice for us. The compound eyes glowed red in anger as she furiously attacked the human. Another collision, another roar. I'm not going to be the only one who's going to be able to do this, she thought as she covered her head with dirt and sand. But again, the human was alive. That's not all. The solid outer shell, the source of her strength, had been deeply severed. It was not supposed to be able to scratch a single human weapon. Apostrophe. Ah, you didn't even use your waist, you didn't use your legs, you just swung it around with your hands and that's all you did? That Lord of the Flies has been snapped clean like a slime. When he said that, the human's expression twisted viciously, as if he couldn't hold back his glee. And then it slashed at him with blinding speed. The outer shell was torn off. The leg was cut off. Her right eye was stabbed through. She did her best to fight back, but she just couldn't catch the human's movements. I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not, but I'm sure it's a good idea. I tried to fly away, but one of my eyes was smashed in and I couldn't fly. Half of his 8 legs were missing, and he had difficulty even keeping his balance in the air. Now the alarm bells were ringing like a storm in her mind. Dying, 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 dying. If this is not done, she will be killed. Even the anger at the murder of her children is now distant. I have to live. I have to survive. He twisted his body into a mess and tried to get away from humans. Of course, such resistance would not be effective, and the human attacks would not stop. However, What a sudden drop in the efficiency of the Soul Eater. The human stops attacking with a questioning voice. Then it began to mumble something. Is it because I was about to die? No, but there's not as much difference as I said before. You're obviously running away from it, but... Oh, that's it by any chance. In order to eat souls efficiently, your soul must be activated or something like that. I'm sure it's only natural that there would be a difference in the ease of eating between an enemy coming at you from the front and an enemy that's running away from you. In that case, what's the point of prolonging it any longer? After saying this, the human being held up his weapon towards the she. The moment the black sword's point was pointed at you, you were enveloped in a chill that you had never felt before. If she were a human being, she would have screamed for sure. They would have killed me. They would have killed me. They would have killed me. If she stayed here, she would definitely be killed. I move the wings on my back with all my strength. Ignoring balance and nothing else, he floats his body in a shielding motion. I don't care if I run into a wall. Fly, fly, just fly. We will aim for the exit from the sky. Humans cannot fly. Once you're outside the nest, you can escape. That's what she thought and kept moving her wings to its back. Illusionary one-sided High 8. I heard such a voice. The next moment when I thought that, a tremendous impact struck me from below. The impact was so great that the huge body of her rose nearly 5 meters at once. The exit is already close at hand. Confused by the unexplained impact, the she half unconsciously moved her wings. No, she tried to move them. However, the 4 wings that answered that command were already lost. With the earlier impact, she's wings were cruelly torn off and flying in the air, and there is no reason for her to fly through the air without her wings. What? Dash. Dash her? After about 5 breaths of blank space, she was slammed to the floor of the cave. The ground shook violently like an earthquake. Her body fluids poured out of the wounds inflicted by the human, and she quickly lost her strength. It's not just a matter of time before you'll be able to get your hands on it. It's a flying slash with the blade wrapped in power. It is one of the basic techniques of the Itoryu style. It's a good thing that you can't even hit that basic technique until just yesterday. To be able to use it so easily like this, you're the Lord of the Flies, the black of night and the red of blood. The sharp blade, which combines the 2 colors of black and blood red, is thrust into her brow. She, realizing the human's intentions, tries to block the approach by moving her remaining legs, but the black sword easily cuts through her resistance. She is now like a giant maggot, having lost all her legs and wings. Say hello to your children in the afterlife. With such a voice, something invaded her head. She tried to make a last resistance, and stopped. I don't know where the other world that the humans spoke of is located, but it looks like I'll be able to see my children if I stay put. Then it's better. I'm sure they must be hungry. I'll give them plenty of food again. Or so I thought. Let's not go after the human man, though. Or so I thought. That was the last thought of her. 13 Episode 12, Encounter at the Bottom of the Hole. The moment I stabbed the Lord of the Flies between his eyebrows, an enormous amount of soul flowed into me, incomparable to the time I cut the maggots. After trembling and enjoying the pleasure, I couldn't help but laugh as I remembered my words just before. I couldn't help but laugh as I remembered my own words just before. Oh my God, that's disgusting. But you know what? I told you to say hello in the afterlife, but I ate all the souls of both kids and parents, so there's no way I'd be able to go even if there was an afterlife. Ha 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 ha. While I was laughing like that, my body trembled greatly with a buzz. With a joyful expression on his face, he displayed the level, and the number on it was 5. I can't stop laughing more and more at the level that goes up as if it were interesting. However, I couldn't keep on laughing. If the level of the game rose, but I couldn't escape from the nest and died of starvation, I wouldn't be able to look at it. The lack of side holes in this nest was confirmed when I had been hunting down the maggots. The only way to escape was to get out of the hole above my head. Well, I'm not afraid of that now. Earlier, when I fought the Lord of the Flies, I had strengthened my physical abilities by wrapping my entire body in Jing Jing, which is a magical power that is created inside the body. To put it simply, Jing Jing is the magic power that is created inside the body. To borrow a sorcerer's phrase, It's called an Odo. Incidentally, the magic power that exists in nature is called mana. If you compare the magic that uses Odo and the magic that uses mana, the latter is usually superior. It's like magic created by an individual versus the world, so it's not surprising. But the story is a bit different in the Atarayu style of illusion. The amount of odds and ends in the users of Atarayu, which is based on the manifestation of anima, is on an order of magnitude greater than that of other people. Of course, there are individual differences, but those who have mastered the mind-dressing technique will almost certainly surpass the magicians of their profession. Naturally, the power techniques that used Odo were born and refined. Mastery of the J technique is an essential element in mastering the fantasy Atarayu. I've seen my Jujin ability improve by leaps and bounds after mastering Shinzu. It's like a never-ending fountain of power bubbling up in my body. And the same is true for my physical abilities, which are clad in these powers. Now, he could even climb vertical cliffs without any tools. Even trapped at the bottom of a deep vertical hole, he didn't feel desperate at all. More importantly, that's the problem. Out of the corner of my eye I see a girl lying there. Like me, she was a victim of the Lord of the Flies' grasp. Her age would be 13 or 4 years old, if you think of her as human, that is. She had a horn on her forehead. Even to the untrained eye, 2 antlers of obvious size were sprouting from her forehead. There are non-human species in this world. The only one I know of directly is the elven Lunamaria. But it's not uncommon to see beastmen and dwarves in the city of Ishka, and rumor has it that there are lizardmen, fishermen, merman, and dragonmen, dragon newt. However, when it comes to those sub-races, there is only one that I know of that has horns, and that is the Kaijin. I'm sure you're not the only one. I've never seen it before. A hostile race of humanity that worships the demon gods, who are part of an illusory species. Some say that the demon gods are the grown-up forms of the demon race. Humans and demigods killed each other head-on in the Great War 300 years ago, and that relationship continues to this day. Nevertheless, after the demon gods were sealed off, the demon race was driven by humans and is now almost extinct. So in terms of threats, they are not as good as they were 300 years ago. But the humans will still form a clique and attack the demon people when they find them. I would like to say that it's because they can't help but be afraid of going back 300 years in the past, but the truth is, there is probably greed involved. The horn on the forehead of the demon tribe contained quite a powerful magical power, and was prized as a high-quality magical medium. If roasted, it could be used as a medicine; if crushed, it could be used as an ingredient for advanced armor, and if hollowed out and made into a cup, the poisonous wine would be rendered ineffective. It is said that a single demon horn can make a fortune, and in fact, from time to time, when it is found and auctioned off from somewhere, it fetches an eye-popping price. When I thought about it, I remembered a rumor I'd heard before. There's an illusory species living deep in the forest of Titis. Maybe it's true. I look at the girl's face while mumbling such things. To be frank, the girl was a little dirty. Only her face and hair barely showed signs of having been groomed, but other than that, the level of a vagrant in an alleyway was better than that of a vagrant. As for the clothes, they were nothing more than large leaves forcibly tied together with vines. When you're lying down, you're likely to see parts of you that shouldn't be visible, or rather, you can see them. Well, since I don't know how demons age, they might actually look like this and be past 20 years old, but I shouldn't. I digress. Well, what do we do now? To put it bluntly, it's a chance to get rich. 2 horns of the devil. If it worked, he could get a lot of money that he could live with for the rest of his life. If you wanted, you could tie a rope around their necks and take them home. In a way, it's more profitable than selling the horns. And this girl, although she's a little dirty looking, she has a rather pretty face. There is a feeling that she might grow into a more beautiful type as she gets older. In addition, she has a mellow soul that you can tell just by looking at her like this. The desire to eat here has been on my face since a while ago. Realizing this, I couldn't help but giggle. I slapped myself on the cheek with a flop. Ever since I excited my mind attire, I was strangely distant from the person I was before. And I don't hate that one bit. In fact, I even feel somewhat refreshed. Is it the power of the mind's outfit that is pulling me down, or is this my true nature? Either way, it doesn't matter. Either way, I can be proud to say that I am me. But it is. That's why I had to draw the line for wielding my power. If anyone wielded this power, they would eventually become drowned in power and become a monster. I'm not going to take that kind of future lying down. That line is, to be specific, whether or not the other party has any harmful intentions towards me. No matter how much the other party is the demon race, I should not eat the other party who has not caused me any harm. On the contrary, if they've caused me harm, whether they're a demon or a human, you can eat them. Hey, 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 Sword of the Falcon. You'll learn something when you get back. As I was inwardly flaring up like that, a small moan escaped from the girl's mouth. If you look at the girl, she is shaking her face from side to side with her eyebrows furrowed in anguish. She must be close to waking up. As predicted, after a short pause, the girl slowly opened both her eyes. 14 Episode 13 Gylocks. Her large, round eyes snapped open. At first, the girl's eyes, which were vacant as if she was dreaming, woke up at once when she caught sight of me. The next moment, the girl, who had screamed inaudibly and was about to jump up, covered her face with a look of astonishment. She must have realized that she could not move at all. I spoke as slowly as possible to the girl, who moved her face from side to side in a panic. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was no response to my question. But the girl who heard my voice had a clear expression on her face and her lips were pursed into a tight line. Maybe you understand this. Well, neither do I. I was attacked by a demon called the Lord of the Flies and brought to this nest. Do you remember that? The girl closes her eyes tightly. Apparently, she is remembering the time she was attacked. I defeated the demon. The body is over there. She points to the Lord of the Flies, whose wings and legs have been ripped off and whose head has been severed. The girl, eyes wide open, freezes. I think we're probably in a mountain somewhere, but there's no side hole that could be an exit. In order to get out, you have to get out through that thing up there. That's where you have to go. Pointing above her head, the girl looked in that direction as if she were tripped up, too. In the sunlight coming in, the night had long since dawned. While she was crushing the maggots, the girl narrowed her eyes glaringly. Her face stiffened as she realized the distance between herself and the hole above her head. I'm going to get out of here now. The girl, she rolls her eyes and looks at me. Boy, do you have a way out of here? The girl, her eyebrows furrowed as if to say, don't be ridiculous. I'll carry you on my back to get out of here if you want, and if you don't want human help, then I'll leave you here. What are you going to do? Girl, averts her gaze as if confused. Yeah, by the way, I don't think the body's paralysis will go away for at least a day. Well, it's just my experience, so I don't know what will happen in the case of demons. Girl, the moment you hear the word demon, you glare at me in alarm. You're quite a versatile girl, being able to talk to a human with just your expression. Well, I can understand why you are wary. I held out my hand. It's her decision whether or not to grab that hand. I'm going to take a test climb up the wall. I'll come back down when I'm about halfway up, so you'll have time to decide on an answer for me. With that, I moved away from the girl and bent down lightly to attach myself to the wall. The wall is almost vertical, but there are countless protrusions that provide clues, footholds. The problem is that it's slightly angled in places. The problem was that in some places, the wall was slightly angled, and I would have to use both hands to climb it, almost like a pull-up. No matter how much strength you have in your body, you can't just stick to the wall at a negative angle like a bug. I began to climb the wall with a lot of energy. I'm not going to be the only one who can do this. And an hour later, I had successfully escaped by piggybacking the girl. It was an escape that had nothing special to say. No, since there's nothing to talk about, it's not an escape play, but an escape line. The exit was atop a small cliff. The vast Titus forest spread out below us, and a strong wind blew against our faces with a whirlwind. And as if the sound of the wind was lost in the sound of the wind, I heard a small voice thanking me. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. She casually responds to the vague voice that comes from behind her back. Incidentally, this is the first time the girl has spoken. I'm sure it's because of the fact that I've been climbing up and down the wall. She just nodded her head in amazement when I double-checked to see if I was carrying her on my back the other day. So, do you have somewhere to go? If you know where the house is, I'll give you a ride there. You sound puzzled and hesitant. Well, I'm hesitant to tell you where the house is, even if it's the person who pulled me up from the bottom of the hole. You could point me to a mountain or a tree or a rock or something like that, though. Then to your left, on the third largest camphor tree. I'm sorry, as far as I can see, they all look the same size. I can see roughly 10 of them. The girl pondered what was going on, then used another expression to explain. Jiria Oaks, sir. I'm sorry. Jiria Oaks? But I'm not sure which one. I'll explain it to you when we get off the cliff, right? Thank you for your time. I nodded my head in a daze, and the girl giggled at me. Why is the person who helped you apologize? I wonder why? Well, be that as it may, I'm going to run down from here, so be careful not to bite your tongue. After a word of refusal, I hobbled down the cliffside with the girl on my back. Several times along the way, I thought I heard what sounded like screaming in my ear, but I didn't care. The screams began to sound like a child screaming for joy on the playground equipment, but we decided not to worry about it. After that, we arrived at the Jiria Oaks, which is not a landmark, but a tree nut that apparently works to neutralize the toxicity. They are too sour to be edible, but their sourness is said to be effective against poisoning. In fact, the girl who ate the nuts with her mouth full of eggs did not immediately learn to walk, as expected, but within an hour her fingertips were able to move. It's a good thing that you're able to get your hands and feet free in another hour, and then recover to stand up on your own in another hour. It's just like magic. Jiria Oaks is amazing. I thought so. The girl, who had recovered, gave me directions to the city of Ishka and we headed home. The girl told me that I should just go down the river and I'd be fine. In the end, I didn't even know the girl's name, let alone her house, but I was quite satisfied. It was the first time in a long time that I'd felt like I'd been able to help someone. For the past few months years, I've been mostly gathering medicinal herbs. It's the first time in a long time that I've felt this kind of satisfaction. By the way, when I was waiting for the girl to recover, I wasn't attacked by demons or monsters. Speaking of the depths of the Titus Forest, this is a dangerous area where even experienced adventurers can lose their lives. But why is this? To be honest, I'm in the mood to try out the mind dressing a bit more. Well, okay. But for now, let's focus on getting back to the city. As I increased the amount of juju that I had spread throughout my body, I put more force into my legs as I kicked the ground. 15 Episode 14, Another Soul Eater. It was 7 days after I returned to the city of Ishka, 7 days after I was attacked by the Lord of the Flies. Since it took me a little over 4 days to get through the forest, I thought it would be 5 to 6 days later, but apparently I had been trapped in the nest for longer than I thought. Well, it's impossible to remember exactly how long it took to be slowly eaten by the maggots, so it can't be helped. Anyway, when I returned to the city, I immediately went to the guild. I thought that even if I went to the guild with my wispy hair, tattered clothes and body covered in grime, I would be kicked out. I myself wanted to relax for at least one night in order to fight those guys. To be honest, I had a lot of things on my plate. There's a public bathhouse in Ishka that the average person can use for a low fee. So, after mingling with the workers and getting my sweat and grime off, I bought some suitable clothes and then headed to the entertainment district. The sun was setting, and I walked quickly down the main street. I had been struggling with poverty for the past few years, and I hadn't set foot in the entertainment district as a matter of course. The last time I remember going there was 5 years ago. A senior adventurer took me there with Lars, and I was thrilled to be on my way, although Lars seemed to be thrilled in a different way, wondering what to do if the ladies found us. Anyway, that's how long it's been since we've been there. No problem with the funds. The reason for this is that we received the remains of the adventurers killed in the Lord of the Flies lair. The dead don't need money. I will make full use of them. In exchange, I'll make sure the recognition slips are delivered to the guild, so please rest in peace. I'm sure the other equipment I've left in there will be worth quite a bit of money if I sell it, so I'll be back to get it when the time comes. I'm not sure if I'm a particularly bad person, but I'm not. The guild's rules clearly state that you should deliver the recognition slip and the leftover items to the guild as much as possible, but that's an unspoken understanding, so they don't ask you to go into it. To the person to whom you delivered the recognition slips, did you find any leftovers? He asks. What did you do? The person asked replies, number. That's the end of the story. If this was the case, there were many people who would take the remains of the adventurers, leaving their identification slips in the dust. For the guild, and for the families left behind, it's important to verify the life and death of a missing adventurer. Of course, there are those who submit their belongings according to the protocol. You can't blame them, but I have no obligation or duty to follow the guild's rules, having been expelled from the guild in the first place. In spite of that, I collected everyone's recognition slips properly, so my actions are not to be blamed, even if they are praised. After finishing the self-justification, it was time to go to the brothel. You enter the shop your seniors took you to in the past, and you pick out a partner who you would not normally be able to talk to and show him her to your room. When you push him down with a snort and munch on his lips, the it has come. With a thud, my heart jumped up and down. An urge not unlike a sexual urge runs through your body. The person I was held by force let out a small scream and looked at me accusingly. It's the same age as me, but there's no doubt that she's a high-ranking prostitute, even for the price of a night. She must have figured out long ago that I'm not used to this kind of situation. A poor man who happened to have gotten a lot of money is being served without knowing how to caress, and the moment he is looked at with such contempt, the earlier impulse is multiplied in his head, forcing the person who dislikes me to hold the other person in my arms. I just put my lips to the other person's lips. I ate it, the important soul thing, in the other person. At that moment, the body of the woman bounced greatly in my arms. I don't know what kind of sensation arose on the other side. However, I am sure it is something I have never felt before, and she is clearly confused and trying to move away from me. But I ignored their actions, or rather, I hadn't even seen it in the first place. It was because I was drunk with tremendous pleasure. That pleasure I felt when I first cut the first maggot in the Lord of the Flies nest. That is what I felt as long as I sucked my lips. And that's not all. My mouth was filled with a meltingly sweet taste. Girls' lips are not sweet, or any other ratio, but really sweet. The sweetness, which seemed to be concentrated many times over from the island's sweet wine, was not my cup of tea. But at this moment it was the equivalent of heavenly nectar. I would drink it to my heart's content. How many times did I repeat this? In my arms, the woman was blushing and her whole body was convulsing with a dumbfounded look on her face. And yet I continued to do the act, and continue. When I came to my senses, my level had gone up to 16 episode 15 asking for sin. The next day, I was sitting in a room in the Adventurers Guild. What happened last night? Well, the person in charge of the brothel was very angry with me because I pushed the other woman beyond her limits. Yes, I paid a no small amount of apology to the brothel and the brothel mistress, and managed to get things settled. The prostitute was quite weak, but she didn't seem to notice that it was because I had eaten her soul, as expected. Well, that's not surprising. And I was banned from the brothel. Well, that's just as well. I'm very glad that she was saved. He could have been the murderer, you know. So, I wasted no time in getting tired before I had to deal with the important stuff. But this is where the real work begins. I pulled myself together and faced the guild's receptionist and the members of the Falcon Blade. I've been telling you that for a while now. Don't make me say the same thing over and over again. He snickered at the receptionist's words and pointed at the four men facing each other across the table. Their Falcon sword used me as a bait to save themselves. He even used a killing spell, politely. I'm not going to withdraw this claim. Why should it be withdrawn in the first place? Even these guys aren't denying it. That's true, but when there are discrepancies in the testimony of both sides, there has to be confirmation. Then check the testimony. I don't need to know if you're going to withdraw it. The receptionist fell silent as I said this. By the way, this receptionist is the girl with the braids who fired me the other day. Instead of her silence, Lars opened his mouth. Sora. What? Did Milo really use magic on you? I can't believe it. Lars looks at me with suspicious eyes. At that time, Lars had been knocked unconscious by the attack of the Lord of the Flies and was being carried by the priest warrior earlier. Therefore, he had not seen the scene with his own eyes. I gave a light shrug to Lars. I don't need you to believe me, or rather, ask the person in question before you ask me. Milo admitted that he used magic, but he says he didn't mean to hit you. Didn't the magic you unleashed on the Lord of the Flies hit you by bad luck? When I heard that, I couldn't help but blurt it out. Phew. Ha, 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 ha. Bad luck. As expected, the leader of the C-ranked party Sword of the Falcon, That's a great deduction. I clapped, deliberately crackling and clapping, and Laz's face flushed with vermilion. Beside him, Miroslav and Ilya were staring at me with eyes that looked like they were going to kill me, but I laughed at their gaze. Then I have a question for you, Leader Sama. At that time, you were being pursued by the Lord of the Flies, and I was standing in the direction of your progress. From Miroslav's point of view, the demon was in the rear and I was in the front. With this positioning, where do I go wrong and how do I misfire my magic? Did the magic you shot behind you inadvertently fly forward? What the hell is that? Even a kid just learning magic wouldn't make a mistake like that. Lars smiled and pulled his lips together in a wry smile. The receptionist furrows her brow and interrupts him. Sora-sama, this is not the place to blame the other party. This is a place for both of us to confirm the other's point of view and, if possible, compromise. Please do not speak in a manner that is intentionally hurtful to others. That's rude. I didn't know it was such a noble place. I only thought it was a place to think about how to end my appeal in a vague way in order to protect the guild's precious high-ranking adventurers. Do you intend to insult our guild? If it's not, then get on with it and get rid of these guys. If you don't mention that at all, and you're told to drop the lawsuit, or watch your tone, I'm tempted to make an evil assumption. Just the other day, I'm going to roll my lips and smack the sarcasm out of the person who sentenced me to be fired with a clear face. Let's be honest. That feels super nice. The blame lies with them. You can blame them as much as you want if you want to. If you want to extract some advantage, such as medical expenses and hush money, a little concession is necessary. But the advantage for me now is to make the Falcon sword and the guild, the receptionist, suffer as much as I want. There's no need to concede a single thing. Then Ilaria, seeing me like that, opened her mouth bitterly. You call it punishment, but what exactly do you want me to do? Would you be happy if we all rubbed our heads on the floor? What's the matter with you? Don't reopen the door after you've thrown someone else out with a stone. I don't care if we go to the temple of the god of law to appeal to him. Your priest warrior has turned others to stone for his life. I said back, and here I deliberately crossed my arms and thought about it. No, I see, I'd rather go that way. If it's the temple of the god of law, there are probably priests who can use the miracle of lie detection, sense lie, and they should know that my words are not lies. It's a lot better than having a bunch of stupid questions and answers in a place like this. Hearing that, Ilaria's face changes color. Ilya looks at me as I stand up with a thin smile on my face and tries to say something. There was someone who opened his mouth before her. It is Miroslav. Wait. I'm the one who cast the spell on you. The rest of you have nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter? Doesn't it matter that they didn't even try to help the victims of their friends' unreasonable attacks, but instead used them as bait for the demons to get away with this and that? What a joke. Murderer. I'm going to give you a new alias in return for the parasite you've given me. I'm sure that Miroslav has realized my intentions, and his beautiful face is twisted. In the first place, emergency evacuation is allowed, even for adventurers. Two people cannot be caught on a single board. Miroslav uttered an old story. A sailor on the wrecked ship found a plank and was holding on to it when another sailor came along and asked him to let him hold onto it too. The plank was so small that if two men grabbed onto it, they would both sink. The first sailor who grabbed the plank was forced to push the second sailor away and drown him. Later, the surviving sailor was charged with murder, but was acquitted at trial. So Miroslav superimposed his actions on this sermon. I snickered. Lars, did you hear that? When you use the word emergency evacuation, it's obvious that this guy intended to attack me. That's what I'm talking about. Milo. I'm sorry, Lars. But then, I was desperate to help you. I had to do something about it. That's all I could think of. Miroslav covered his face with his hands and began to cry. Seeing his companion, Lars quickly put his hand on Milo's shoulder, put his mouth close to his ear and spoke softly to him. I know. Milo is not the kind of kid who would hurt people. And it was my fault for pushing him to that point. It was my fault, too. I'll make up for it with him. Lars. I'm sorry. Miroslav embraces Lars as if he was overcome with emotion, and Lars, who gently accepts it, I watched the trifecta that had begun so abruptly with blank eyes. What's this? I mean, if you're going to apologize, apologize to me before Laz does. I can't remember anyone apologizing to me since I've been back in town. Here, even Luna Maria, who seems to have the most common sense, is silent. If you look at the elf who has been silent from earlier, he has a pale face and is slumped over. Perhaps it was my imagination, but it also seemed to be trembling in small increments. It's not like he's tortured by guilt now. But what is he doing? Ilaria is in Ilaria, looking at Lars and Miroslav in an embrace, wondering if she should pull away or watch. Are they all in their heads? These guys. They don't understand the meaning of what Miroslav has done, as if they don't know what they're doing. I sigh. Then Lars opened his mouth as he and Miroslav hugged each other. Sola, you heard me. It's not just Milo's fault that this happened. I'm responsible for it, too. And your leader is willing to take responsibility for that? Yeah, it's superimposed. So how exactly are you responsible for that? That, of course, you can do as you please. If you ask me to bow down, I will. I see. So you don't even bow to me unless you're told to? You really don't know what's going on here, Lars. What? What? You said I could do what I wanted, right? Then I'll take you up on your offer. Get out of my way. I'm going to snake that woman to death and that will be the end of it. Then I pointed to the red-haired wizard, Miroslav, with tears in his eyes. 17 episode 16 Know the Sin. Don't be silly. I'm not gonna let you do that. I will kill Miroslav. Hearing my request, Lars' first words were an angry voice that made the walls shake. My right hand reaches to my waist and grabs the empty space. This is where the hilt of my sword would normally be. The real anger of a 6th level adventurer, anger that pierces the heavens. If it were me before, I would have been trembling. I would have cowered and pissed my pants. But to me now, the man's anger in front of me was no more than a gentle breeze. What are you mad about? Now you've said it yourself. You told me to do what's in my best interest. There are limits. Why does Milo have to be killed? Why? That's because that woman tried to kill me. Of course. You're alive. You're alive. Then Milo doesn't even have to die. FCKU, man. What? Since you saved your life as a result, you want me to let the murderer over the go free? I owe my salvation to my own strength and luck. The murderer, you and the others had nothing to do with it. Why should I lessen your sins? Don't call Milo a murderer. Don't make me say it again. You're alive. Milo didn't kill anyone. A sigh escaped me. He turns to Lars, who stands up to snort, and explains to him to bite and include. Like. Well. Yeah. Let's say one day I stabbed your heart in the back. What are you talking about? Just listen to me. After being pierced in the heart, you naturally die. But a priest who happened to be able to perform the miracle of resuscitation happened to walk by and healed you. You were saved. So you're going to charge me with a crime, right? You're calling me a murderer. And I say to him, you're not dead. You're not dead. You're not dead, and I didn't kill anybody. Don't call me a murderer. You know. Well, what do you think of that? Are you convinced that you're right? Do you understand how unreasonable you are? Lars shakes his fist and shuts up as he chokes on it. Ilaria interrupted Lars to back him up. It's a technicality. Lars, don't be deceived. In the current story, it wasn't the heart that Miro pierced, but his arm. Of course, that's a crime, but that doesn't make it any less of a crime to take a life, does it? Yes, you're right. I told you that Milo's magic hit your arm, you said. Sola. People who bring up metaphors, you know, usually tweak the story to suit themselves. Like this man. Ilaria glares at us, saying, if you can talk back, talk back. Lars, empowered by Ilaria's words, regains his natural color. Seeing that, I couldn't help but sigh. Two more idiots. Hey, no, maybe you really haven't noticed. Luna Maria is still silent. Miroslav, the ringleader, is hiding behind Lars, so I don't know what he's thinking. But oh well. For goodness sake, I'm getting tired of this sterile conversation and it's time to settle the matter. It wasn't the heart that Milo pierced, it was the arm. You do realize, Ilaria, that's far more cruel than killing, right? You're a C-ranked party, and you don't even know what to do with the prey the Lord of the Flies caught. Hearing this, Lars raised his eyebrows dubiously, and Ilaria shushed him with a face that looked like he'd been drinking vinegar. Out of the corner of his eye, He saw Luna Maria shaking her shoulders with a freak out. What do you mean by that? You really don't know? You're still not very good at learning, Lars. Come on, Alaria, show him what you always do. Neatly and clearly, ... It's, hey, Alaria, what's going on? To feed the larvae. What? Then, Sora. As you can see, I was fed to you alive. Oh, I wish I could share 1/100th of that despair and fear with you guys. I laughed at him mischievously and spoke to Ilaria in a coquettish voice. You said something earlier, Ilaria? Even attacking an arm is a crime, but that doesn't mean it should be equated with the crime of taking a life, right? Here, tell Lars again that if the Lord of the Flies catches you, you'll be eaten alive, but it's still less of a crime than killing you on the spot. Well, you won't say anything when it's inconvenient. Are you going to exercise your right to remain silent like a priest of the god of law? Murderer and silent, well, you're a good match, boys. Sola. No. If you make any more fools of my people, I won't let you. And the leader was grumpy. And while we're at it, Lars, you don't think it's a coincidence that your party was attacked by the Lord of the Flies and escaped to me, do you? What do you mean? Ilya knew about it. Naturally, both Miroslav, a sorcerer, and Luna Maria, a qualified sage, would have known about the habits of the Lord of the Flies. Even if they fought, they would not win. If they lost, someone would be eaten alive by the demon. The most dangerous one was you, the one who fainted. The three of them, who love their leader, thought to themselves, is there any way we can help the leader? Couldn't there be a way for us to help ourselves if we could? And then it occurred to them. They remembered that we met before we went into the forest. That wasn't a coincidence. They ran to where I am on purpose. Why do you think Miroslav, who is good at fire magic, used wind magic just then? That's because it's too powerful for his specialty, fire magic. Knowing the habits of the Lord of the Flies, Miroslav knew that demons were only interested in living people. It would be a waste of time if he accidentally killed the decoy. That's why I used wind magic that can limit its power to hurt me enough not to kill me and to make me raw food for the demons. It's bullshit. It's not just a matter of time before you'll be able to get your hands on a new one. Among them, Miroslav disliked me more than anyone else. He even tried to isolate me by spreading bad publicity and driving me out of town. Still, I wouldn't leave the city. Even if I was expelled from the guild, I would stay. And then the Lord of the Flies attacked me. ... Hey Sora, you're not going to. He thought it was a great opportunity. And, Lars, we can help you in any way we can in the name of saving your life. And if I'm accused of a crime, I can always claim it's an emergency evacuation. I can't believe I just said emergency evacuation. I mean, it's a premeditated murder with a demon. FCKU. You gotta be kidding me, man. How dare you bring this to someone who was one of us, friends? He's not our problem anymore. That's what you said to me when we met in the woods. Gee, well, I honestly don't know if I was thinking that far ahead as far as Ilya and Luna Maria are concerned. But, Miroslav, that guy was the only one who absolutely knew everything and acted accordingly. Of course. He was the one who was leading the charge when we escaped from the Lord of the Flies. What do you think, Alaria, Luna Maria? I asked the question, but no answer came back. There was no voice of affirmation. But there was no voice of denial either. Ilya, as a priestess, cannot lie, and Luna Maria, an elf, considers falsehoods to be an abomination. And Lars, who had fainted, had no way to deny it. As Lars turned to Miroslav in a panic, the wizard shook his head, buzzing with the momentum that made his proud red hair level. Ugh, it's a lie, it's a lie. Lars, please believe me. I did indeed attack that man. We did so in order to save ourselves. But it was a spur-of-the-moment thing to do. There is no such thing as a malicious intent to kill. Absolutely not. Miroslav is hanging on to Lars. The scene was a rehash of the previous day. I scoff with the resentment I've had for years. Well, that's what you usually say. No woman would ever say, I tried to viciously get rid of someone who was in my way in front of a man she loves. Shut up, you rude bastard. Hey, you just spewed that bullshit all over the place. Do you think you can get away with this for free by making an enemy of me, the daughter of the Sorcerer Trading Company? Miroslav's eyesight was tinged with a heat and a curse that could kill a person by itself. It is said that there are some wizards who use the evil eye or the demonic eye, and perhaps Miroslav will wake up to it. I don't really care about that at heart. I exaggeratedly raised my hands and turned my attention to the guild's receptionist, who had been a record keeper until then. And the young lady of the Saucer Chamber of Commerce says, I'm not going to retract my opinion either. So I propose to the Adventurers Guild, A proposal, sir? Yes, get me a priest to work on Sensei Lai. Let him examine the woman's words and everything will be clear. If I'm wrong about this, I'll drop the lawsuit. You will be punished for calling an innocent man a murderer. I swear that I will never again enter this city, let alone the guild. Even for the other side, there should be no reason to refuse since the truth will be revealed quickly, as long as they don't lie. I look at Miroslav meaningfully. If my suspicions were truly misplaced, Miroslav would say, I hope so. He would have returned it to me. But I did see it. I saw the hesitant light in the wizard's eyes. Perhaps the receptionist saw it too. The next words she said sounded terribly mechanical. 18 Episode 17, Erase Sin. As you know, the exercise of a miracle requires a donation of a certain amount. As you know, a miracle of such a high moral value as the Sensei's Lai requires more than 10 or 20 pieces of silver. Would Lord Solar be able to spare that amount of money? The receptionist said that and stared at my face. Again, this receptionist is the one who sentenced me to expulsion from the school, knowing that I couldn't even get a single silver coin for my promotion exam. She knows the fact that I couldn't even raise a single silver coin for my promotional exam, and this question is on top of that. The intention of the other side was clear. If you think about it, it's only natural. For the guild, the Falcon Sword is a valuable asset. The rate of accomplishment of requests is high and the residents are very popular. If the Falcon Sword is covered in disgrace, the damage will not only be done to the guild and other adventurers, but also to the guild and other adventurers. An expelled former 10th grade adventurer and a C-rank party, there was no comparison in terms of importance. Even if they had to use a bit of forceful measures, they would still prevent the damage from happening. That's probably the role of the receptionist here. Aren't guilds supposed to pay for things like this? If the guild deems it necessary, yes. However, since this is a proposal from Lady Solar, it will be Lady Solar who will be responsible for payment. Now that you mention it, you don't think you need a miracle? I understand what actually happened. However, Lady Solar's opinion that there is malice in it appears to be influenced by past events. You're trying to avenge your party's expulsion. If that's the case, don't you think we should make it a black and white situation with Sensei Lai? So I'm just saying, if that's what you want, you'll have to come up with the money you need. I click my tongue and call out to the other party. You're the daughter of the Saucer Trading Company. I don't care if you are the leader of the Sword of the Falcon. This is a good opportunity to prove your innocence. Aren't you going to offer me money? No need. I believe in Milo. We don't need to rely on miracles. Wow, it's enough for me to have Lars believe in me. I don't give a DMN what people like you think of me. Huh. Well then, it's no use. I think it's safe to say that we're withdrawing the proposal. I'll have to pay for it. What? Saying that, I take a gold coin from my pocket and put it on the table. The receptionist looks at it and opens her mouth with a plop. Her lips naturally twist up at the first time I see her expression. I heard that 10 or 20 silver coins won't work, but how much are they actually worth? Is one gold coin not enough? Well, that's it. Then another one? Or yet another one? If that's still not enough, here's another one. You're right, this should be enough. He hummed and piled up the gold coins as he said it. Now not only the receptionist, but also Lars and the others had their mouths open. I guess they didn't expect me, who was expelled, to produce gold coins. By the way, because of last night's incident, this is all I have now. Hey, what's the matter with you? I'll pay you. Hurry up and get the priest over here. Yes. Well, where did you get all this money from? Do you have to answer that question? That's a lot of money, and with this kind of money, we need to know where it came from. You're trying to tell me you got it from a crime? Don't make fun of me. As soon as he yelled, he kicked the table in front of him as hard as he could. The gold coins on the table scattered widely with the impact. The receptionist, who was dignified by our dignity, shrugs her shoulders. You thought you couldn't possibly pay for a poor man who was expelled from the guild, right? And you were going to end up with nothing to show for it, weren't you? That's a shame. Look, you're never going to have enough of these, so go to the Temple of Law and get a priest. I'll testify at the table that this money is clean money. That's all you need to know, receptionist. The receptionist gives me a frightened look as I take an aggressive stance. The guild's receptionists are often gallant, despite their pretty appearance, as they deal with rough-and-tumble adventurers on a daily basis. Some of them are as good as adventurers. This receptionist is one of them. If I had threatened you without any good reason, you would have been treated with your usual clear face. However, they must know that they are at fault only in this case. But this time, they know they are at fault, and they cannot show their usual boldness. It is difficult for people to behave normally when they think they are in the wrong. The more serious a person is, the harder it is to behave. I'm not sure if it's simply because they're not protected by the barrier of a receptionist's counter, and they're simply scared of being exposed to my fury. After all, I'm a level 6 right now. Thinking about such trivial things, I was chewing on the pleasure of the vengeance that was bubbling up inside me. The receptionist, who had always looked down at me with a clear face, was now giving me a distinctly frightened look. I shudder. She is the one who has been unreasonable. You can scare them a bit more. When I thought that, I opened my mouth again. I hope you won't bully our staff too much, he said. With that voice, a man entered the room. He was probably around 40 years old. He was a striking figure with fearless eyebrows that looked like a bird of prey spreading its wings, and a gentle light twinkled in both eyes that hinted at a high degree of discernment and steady intelligence. His silver hair is slicked back, and the faint scent of musk drifts through him, giving him the appearance of a distinguished and elegantly dressed man. He was a level 35. He was the only one in the city of Ishka, and there were only 3 adventurers of the first rank in the entire Canarian Kingdom. Elgato Kaes, Master. Were you on your way home? Yeah. The meeting ended earlier than I expected. I'm sorry for the inconvenience to Mr. Liddell. No, I'm not trying to be a bother or anything like that, and, yeah, I've heard most of what you said, Parfait-kun. In fact, I even listened to him at the door for a little while. I'll take over the rest. Okay, yes, nice to meet you. With that, the receptionist called Liddell stood up. Instead, the master of the Adventurers Guild in the city of Ishka sat down there. I thought the receptionist was going to leave the room, but she walked behind Elgato like a secretary. The usual light is back in her eyes as she looks at me. Apparently, Elgato's appearance had the effect of blowing away the receptionists in a drawl. It is not necessary to introduce yourself to each other. Let's get on with it. As he said this, Elgato looked at me and spoke in conclusion. As for the request for lie detection, Sensei, this is rejected. This is the Guildmaster's decision. You look like you might object. Of course, that's not all. I will acknowledge the responsibility of the Falcon Sword in this case and impose a corresponding penalty. Of course, this will also include compensation to the victims. Oh, it goes without saying, but compensation will not include taking someone's life or anything as dangerous as that. We can't afford to lose useful people to the guild here. Both sides may be dissatisfied, but I want you to acknowledge this with an open face. Lars, what do you think? I will abide by the master's decision. But if he makes unreasonable demands, that is a different story. For example, if he demands that I cut off my arm or blind my eyes instead of taking my life, I will fight him to the bitter end. That's a given. Elgato nodded one nod and shifted his gaze to me. Solar, wouldn't it make sense to you if you had the fact that the Falcon Sword was punished? You don't have to force her to be hurt. What exactly is a reasonable penalty? At the very least, the fact that these guys attacked civilians for their lives and used them as decoys will be made public, right? No, that's impossible. The bad publicity would not only affect the Sword of the Falcon, but the adventurers as a whole. Considering the role of adventurers in the city of Ishka, we must avoid any situation that could cause a rift between adventurers and residents as much as possible. As he said this, Elgato crossed his arms and thought about it. As for the content of the penalties, yes, it will be called the issuance of a compulsory request. The content of the request is to exterminate the demons in the Tatas Forest for 1 month. During this time, all the materials and rewards obtained by the Falcon Sword will be in your hands. Considering their abilities, it should be a considerable amount of money. Besides, it's also beneficial for you to reduce the danger of gathering medicinal herbs entities. So you're just gonna keep it to yourself and muddy the waters? Haha, that's a bit of a cop-out. Then the guild will take off its skin for your reconciliation. Here, saying that, Elgato took out the white and silver seal of the Adventurers Guild, a recognition slip. There was a familiar name engraved on it. This is, yes, your recognition vote. The Ishka Adventurers Guild welcomes you, Solar, as a 9th level adventurer. The monthly payments to the guild will also be waived for the first 3 years. What do you think? Do you think this will help? The guild master smiles and tries to hand over the recognition slip. Of course, that smile isn't just a soft one. You know what will happen if I refuse this? He had a powerful smile, as if to say, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. The guildmaster nodded with satisfaction as I received the recognition slip presented to me. The guildmaster nodded in satisfaction as he received the recognition slip I presented to him. With this, our guild of adventurers has developed even more than before. Regardless of Elgato's vague ramblings, I tossed the dog tags I had received. There's a bang, and the dog tags fall into the trash basket in the corner of the room. When Elgato saw that, he narrowed his eyes. Is that an indication that you reject our proposal? I nodded. A sneer tinged my lips. The mumbling tone I was using, even if it was hypothetically a guildmaster, was also discontinued. Did you think I would appreciate that scrap of iron now? You've been mumbling about it since a while ago, but at the end of the day, you're just refusing all my demands and arranging for the advantage of the Falcon Sword. There's not an ounce of fairness in it. If you say it's not, then first call a priest of the God of Law, a priest who can handle the lie detection, Sensei here, I told you we're going to dismiss that, didn't I? Guildmaster decides, right? So what's the binding power of this master or whatever his decision is on me, who has nothing to do with the guild? It was the staff there who said they needed money for the request in the first place. I agreed to pay the money, and in fact, I gave them the money as well. As soon as I did, the guildmaster came out and said he would reject the request. I'm not convinced at all. Do I call a priest as requested, or will the guildmaster soon admit that the woman there is guilty of using a demon to try to kill me? It's 1 in 2. Thora, keep your mouth shut. No adventurer in Ithaca would do that. You are paranoid. You can't help but sympathize with your misfortune, but if you speak too much nonsense, we'll have to take the appropriate action. Take appropriate action. Oh, dear. Well then, let's leave before the proper measures are taken. It was good to know that talking to the guild is useless. With that, Elgato raised one hand to control me as I stood up. Wait, I'm not done talking yet. You don't listen to me, but you have to listen to yourselves? That would be too selfish. I ignored the controls and headed for the door, and the receptionist stood in front of it. The master says to wait. Sir, please return. Sir, get out of my way. If you don't, we'll have to take the appropriate action. The receptionist's cheeks turned a bright vermilion color as she said in imitation of Elgato just now. If you've been listening to me since earlier, you're being rude. Anyone who lives in the city of Ishka knows how much the master has done for this city. And moreover, you were not a member of the guild for 5 years. Your dedication to the city of Ishka also allows you to cover up a murder charge. Being a guild master is a good position to be in. The receptionist, her cheeks flushed with exasperation, steps forward. She seems to have lost her patience with her beloved guildmaster being mocked. I'm not sure when they were approaching, but the guildmaster grabbed the receptionist by the shoulder. Lidilkun, stop. But, master, you don't have to raise your hand, Solar. If you don't accept mediation, that's fine too. However, there will be no need for the guild to act for those who do not accept mediation. All of the terms I just mentioned will be abrogated. As you wish. I don't care if it's on those lousy terms. And this is a warning. If you attempt to act against the guild and its members in the future. You're going to take the proper steps, aren't you? And you're on your own. You're going to say that the person who was expelled from the guild is spreading a bad reputation for resentment. If you are a guild master or an expelled ex-10th level adventurer, you can't even talk about it. The world will trust you for sure. The Falcon Blade will be exonerated. The guild can still owe the Falcon Blade a debt of gratitude. Congratulations to you. Let's just have a nice, Friendly toast. With that, I push past the receptionist in front of me and open the door. Finally, I look back over my shoulder and take a glance at the people in the room and then goodbye forever. He left the room with a curse. 19 Chapter 18, Imprisonment Project. The discussion in the guild was over. As I expected, until the 9th minute. I wasn't surprised that my plea wasn't accepted. I was not surprised that my plea was not accepted from the outset. I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that I'm not going to be able to say that. The only thing is that while I thought so, I'm sure I was disappointed in the outcome. I have just said that I was right up to 0.9% of the way. In other words, I was expecting only a tiny fraction of what I expected. In other words, I had hoped for a single rinse, that they would accept my side of the story. It was something I had planned to say to Lars when I had the chance, but I never got around to saying it. I was grateful to Lars. I had been so grateful to him for inviting me to a party 5 years ago. The goodbyes had been bittersweet, but in the beginning, I had truly enjoyed it. The days of adventuring, sometimes succeeding and sometimes failing, among the same low levels, were filled with a sense of fulfillment that I had never experienced on the island. It was undoubtedly Lars who gave us that time. So, if Lars had admitted to us that we were in the wrong, we could have forgiven Miroslav for that time. Just once. But it didn't turn out that way. A complete breakup. I can confirm that it was the Lars of 5 years ago that I owe to, not the Lars of today. I don't need to say anything about Miroslav. The same goes for the guild. They are no longer anything but enemies. It's no surprise that he held Miroslav's shoulders when he tried to kill me and even tried to cover up his crime. On top of that, since there's a risk that he'll continue to take appropriate measures in the future, there's no choice but to get rid of him. Honestly, the expulsion was my own personal vendetta. But today's incident was nothing personal. The Ishku Adventurers Guild had held up their own convenience and crushed my legitimate appeal. It was more than enough reason to retaliate. I curved my lips at the thought. Now, then, the next question is how to retaliate. We can't just kill and eat them one by one with the heart outfit. That's not going to happen. If they did that, they would normally be violent criminals. He would be in a straight line with the prize money. To begin with, it's not something that will work out that well. I've mastered the mind attire, my level has risen, and I've certainly become stronger. But it doesn't mean I'm the strongest in the world. It's simple. Guildmaster Elgato quiz. If I were to take on him, I would probably lose to him now. If I could successfully apply my heart armor, I would be able to kill him to some extent, but to begin with, it's not that easy to attack an opponent who is nearly 30 levels higher. It's not just Elgato, even Lars and his friends are a strong enough opponent. During the years I've been pumping around collecting medicinal herbs, these Swords of the Falcon have completed dozens and hundreds of quests and gained strength. I don't know the exact level of these men, but, as for Elgato, he's announced it himself. Lars's 6th level number suggests that it can't be less than 10, probably around 15. Ilaria and Miroslav are also in that range. As for Luna Maria, it seems a bit higher, but in any case, I can't match her in terms of level numbers. I can't underestimate them. Of course I don't intend to lose. Aside from Elgato, Lars and the others will be able to win if they have the power of mind attire. Today, after facing those guys, I felt that clearly. However, that's just one-on-one. If you work together as a party, you can't escape a hard fight. In other words, destroying each one of them is the key to success. The blackout, that's a straight line along the bounty route, and before that, I don't think that Guildmaster is going to sit back and watch my actions. First of all, there will undoubtedly be guards in the city. Even if I made it through those guards, as soon as something happened to the Sword of Falcon, I would automatically be included as a suspect. In this way, it might have been easier for me to remain dead by the Lord of the Flies. As long as I was dead, I wouldn't be a suspect, regardless of who I killed or kidnapped. However, If he chose that option, he would not be able to obtain any of the information and fame that he had obtained from the meeting he had just had. As a result of taking these conditions into account, I knew that was the way to go. I decided to put my warmed-over idea into action. The Lord of the Flies' nest in the depths of the Titus forest. I would use that place. To be more specific, I would bring Miroslav there. Once in the forest, he would be out of the sight of the guild. Even if a search party was organized, they wouldn't expect him to be hiding in the depths. It's a perfect place for confinement. Before the discussion with the Falcon Sword earlier, I was interviewed by the guild staff about what had happened since I was captured by the Lord of the Flies. He asked me what happened in the nest, how I escaped and so on. I blurted out those questions into a blur of I don't remember, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure. I had a plan to use the nest. Now, the only person in this world who knew about the nest was that girl from the demon tribe, with the exception of me. If that's decided, the next step is to prepare food, water, clothes. Oh, and some cloth to keep out the cold. It would take nearly 4 days to get from here to the nest even at full strength of the jade, so it would take quite a bit of time to prepare. I crossed my arms, and crossed my arms. In any case, both the Falcon Sword and the guild will continue to be on alert for about a month or so from here, so, in a way, this preparation period might be a good distraction. Humans can't continue to be in a state of tension for more than a month. If they act when they are getting tired of being on guard, they will have a better chance of success. If we decide to do that, we must somehow transform the cave into a place where people can live. In order to do so, we'll need quite a bit of supplies, and if we buy them in this city, the guild will soon know about it. I don't think that would be enough to detect our plans, but there's no need to dare to give them a clue. Let's get out of this city once. If we go to the cities and villages near the Titus forest to buy supplies and accumulate them little by little, we will not be suspected. Fortunately, there's plenty of money to go around. That's when I realized something, and I almost got my head around it. Oh man, I left all the gold coins I had in the guild. There is no way I'm going to be able to go back and get it right now. I'm not going to be able to get it back. I'm not going to be able to get it back. It's no use. I still have some silver coins left, and the equipment I left in the nest can be exchanged for cash. The preparations will take a bit longer, but there's no set deadline anyway. If it is necessary, I don't mind taking half a year or a year to prepare. Well, I have no intention of taking that long. With that in mind, I pulled myself together and started walking down the streets of Ishka. At that moment, a vague voice called out to me from behind. I turned around with a frown, and what I saw in my field of vision was an elf, Luna Maria, with a face so pale that she looked as if she was about to collapse. 20 Episode 19 Luna Maria. The moment the door to the room was closed with a clatter, the previously petrified body was freed, as if it had been freed from a spell. Luna Maria held her arms in her arms as if to hug her body. Her body still trembled and trembled. Alaria, who noticed Luna Maria's condition, ran up to her in surprise and said something to her, but her voice trembled in Luna Maria's ears, but did not reach her brain. Perhaps realizing this, Ilaria attempted to use the miracle of Fukatsu to restore her energy, but Ilaria's magic power was not enough to make Luna Maria regain her composure. However, this was not Ilya's fault. Even if the person who used the miracle was the high priest of the Temple of Law, it would have been impossible to exorcise Luna Maria's current fears. A single question occupied the mind of Luna Maria, which raged like a stormy sea. Who was that young man who had just walked out of the room? Who the hell was he? Of course, I know that the young man's name is Sora. We're estranged now, but we were once friends who had adventures together. I also remember the foods he liked and disliked. I also know that the name Sora is actually Sora. He told me with a laugh before that in the Canary Kingdom, the language of the Adastara Empire, especially the Eastern script, was unfamiliar to him, so he registered the guild as Sora to make it easier to understand. Luna Maria often teamed up with Sola because of the composition of the party. The combination of Lars, Iria and Milo was ironclad, so when they were split into two groups, for example, she would inevitably team up with Sora. Besides, the two of them often did the preparation before the adventure and the cleanup after the adventure. That's why I knew Sora better than the other members. But I don't know her like that. I don't know that kind of power. The Sora in the eyes of Luna Maria, the spirit user, did not have a human form. Dark, dense, bottomless darkness, a deformed shadow that the spirits could not approach. Something fierce, mighty and desperate. Just looking at it made my legs wobble. My body trembled just by being watched. If Sora had been in the mood for it, those who were there would have been killed without being able to resist. A figure that made me feel the power to be sure of that. In Lunameria's knowledge, there is only one kind of being that corresponds to the giant shadow. Dragon. 7 days ago, when they had exchanged words in the forest of Titus, he hadn't seen a shadow like that. What had happened to Sora in just 7 days? No, was that really Sora in the first place? Has some nasty demon borrowed Sora's form and entered the city? Such a question even crossed her mind. The voice of an irritated Lars jumped into Lunameria's ears. Master. I'm sure he refused the Master's mediation. I'm sure that this time there will be no repercussions, right? It's not going to happen that way, Lars. That's it, this is it. What? Don't ever think that we were right about this. Don't think that we were right to do this. What you did was unforgivable. The use of magic to attack other people and blame them for their demons is, as Sora said, murder. No, but the Master was just. I defended you guys because Solo's actions were detrimental to the stability of the guild. It wasn't because I allowed you guys to be reasonable. Don't get me wrong about that. The first-class adventurer sharply looked at Lars and nailed him. As if pushed by its power, Lars took a half-step backwards and then gave a small nod. Good. So, Ladle-kun. Yes, Master. When I was talking to you, did Sola tell you anything about the time she was held by the Lord of the Flies? I read Mr. Parfait's report, which I interviewed, but it only says 3 things: I don't know, and I don't remember. No, he didn't say anything like that. I see. It was unnatural for a level 1 10th level adventurer, or rather a former adventurer, to come back alive from the Lord of the Flies' nest in the Titus forest, probably in the depths. No matter how you think about it, it would be extremely difficult for him to escape from the Lord of the Flies' paralyzing poison to escape from his lair. But on top of that, it would be impossible for him to return to the city, overcoming the magical beasts of the forest that were attracted to him by the smell of blood. Recalling Sora's words earlier, Elgato chuckles faintly. Apparently, the guild master wasn't too angry with Sora. Be that as it may, the answer to Elgato's question was obvious to Lunameria. No matter how much of a demonic beast it was, or even more so because it was a demonic beast, there was no way she would challenge Sora now. Not to mention, what effect would a paralyzing poison have? The current Sora is a dragon. It's an illusory species. Of course, she couldn't talk about such things. It's all speculation on Lunameria's part. The only basis for it was one thing: Sora's appearance looked like a dragon. I've never heard of a person possessing the power of an illusory species, not even in the College of Wise Men. The books I've studied so far have never written about it. Come to think of it, the only person who was scared of Sora was Lunameria, and Lars and the others didn't seem to notice at all, and so did the guildmaster and receptionist. In this case, they would be advised to rest when they uttered the opinion that Sora was a dragon. Thinking that, Lunameria dropped her gaze to the floor, and it was only there that she noticed the dull, glowing gold coins on the floor. What to do with the chase? What shall I call out to him? I didn't have any concrete ideas about what I should do, but, if I had to, I would say I wanted to make sure. I'm not sure if what I saw in that room was the product of an illusion or not. Well, here ... I'll give it back to you. A clear sound, chirping, echoing from the small drawstring bag I held out to her. Hearing this, Sora blinks her eyes in surprise. What? Did you come all the way here to deliver it? Yes, and I'm here to apologize for what happened earlier. As soon as she said it, Lunameria hung her head deeply. In response to her movements, the elf's golden hair, reminiscent of moonlight, cascaded down from her shoulders like a waterfall. I am sorry for the harm I have done to you and for abandoning you. The streets of Ishka are busy today. In the middle of that traffic, an eye-catching elf bows his head deeply. It is unavoidably attracts the attention of those around it. If it was the usual Lunameria, she would have paid a little more attention to her surroundings, and even if she were to apologize, she would surely have chosen a place. But at this time, she didn't have time to think that far. I hung my head as if something was rushing me. I had a feeling that if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to make it in time. Who or what would not be able to make it in time? I didn't know that, though. Then Sora saw Luna Maria and opened her mouth in displeasure. I thank you for delivering the money, but an apology is unnecessary. Or rather, it's offensive. What? I'd rather not apologize. In the beginning I'd like to say that I was confused by the demons, but that's understandable, since I was attacked by the demons. If I were in the same position, I would have done the same thing. But then, why didn't you bow down at the table earlier? It's not. I couldn't tell you that it was because I was frightened of you. Seeing Luna Maria like that, Sola curved her lips. Yeah, I can understand this too. Bowing down in that seat means that Miroslav admits his responsibility. You couldn't just bow before Lars and the others, could you? You don't need to put a crack in your relationship with your buddies to get to know me. Well, that's okay. It's a natural decision. But if that's the case, why are you bowing now? It's just in case I forgive you. That's all right. Even if I don't forgive you, you'll get the immunity if I've apologized properly. You don't compromise your relationship with the party, while satisfying your conscience. As expected of a wise man, you are very good at your job. But it's only unpleasant for those of us who have to deal with it. You can go ahead and do whatever you want with your apology that only satisfies you, faker, by looking in a mirror. My God. The first thing to do is to try to deny it. But by that time Sola had quickly turned on her heel and was about to disappear into the hustle and bustle. When she was about to follow him, Sola looked back over her shoulder and took a glance at Luna Maria. The coldness of his gaze stopped him from stepping out. When Sora saw such a Luna Maria, she walked away without saying anything in particular. The elven spirit user could only stare at her back in amazement. 21 Episode 20 Miroslav Souza. Miroslav Souther, the sorcerer of the Falcon Blade, was in a bad mood. The reason for this was obvious. He had been unable to go out for the past month or so, ostensibly for Miroslav's protection, but in reality he was under near guildhouse arrest. It was clear that this was a punishment for the incident with the Lord of the Flies of the past day. It's inexcusable. What crime have I committed? In an empty room, Miroslav bites his nails. No. He tried to bite them and stopped midway through in a rush. It would be foolish to damage his nails, which he had polished so beautifully, with his own teeth. There is no shortage of food and water, and I can read magic and academic books if I wish. Initially, he spent his time as if he had been granted a vacation. Because of this occasion, I also took care of my hair, nails and skin more carefully than usual. I don't take care of them on a regular basis, but as you would expect from an adventurer, the time I have for beauty is limited. In that sense, it's worthwhile, I thought to myself. But after a month of living like that, I was beginning to feel depressed. At the same time, the suffocating feeling of being watched over was something Miroslav had never experienced before. Lars and his friends have been given other jobs at Lars and his friends, and they don't often show their faces to him. The fact that he didn't know how long this life would last also irritated Miroslav. Inevitably, the dissatisfaction turned to the individual who was the cause of the problem. Sola ... Hey man like that ... What good is it to you to be alive? After more than 5 years, he has been stuck in the 10th grade and still takes herbs. If such a man is willing to lay down his life to save Lars, it should be more of an honorable death. I'd rather be grateful, I think. There was an unconcealed hatred in his tone, and not a hint of regret in his voice. In fact, Miroslav didn't feel bad about the action he had taken. He was aware that his actions were objectively problematic, but he was certain that even if he could rewind time, he would do the same thing again. I don't give a DMN what happens to any man other than Lars. Miroslav's eyes are filled with hatred for the sky and for the existence of men. His father, who used to have many concubines with his money. The students of the College of the Wise, who have been harassing him for losing to a younger woman. Miroslav, a former party member who kindly approached the too young Miroslav and invited him to a party and raided his sleeping quarters. The men have no good memories of the men before they met Lars. For Miroslav, the fact that a man, Sola, came into the same party was nothing but painful. He would have been adamantly opposed to it if it wasn't Lars who invited him. Fortunately, Sola had the problem of talent limitations, so my patience was only limited to 6 months. Still, I felt annoyed more than once, and moreover, I felt that the record of having someone as incompetent as Sora in the glorious Sword of the Falcon should be erased, especially from Miroslav's own memory. It would be best if he were dead, but as expected, I can't go that far. So I've decided to run him out of town. If I never see him again, he's as good as dead. I spread rumors and notoriety while being careful to keep myself out of the public eye as much as possible, and hunt down Sora. Among them, the one case of parasite was the most satisfying. Just look at that guy's back at that time. Miroslav's mouth breaks out in delight as he recalls Sola's dejected back as she walks out of the tavern to escape. In the past, the incident in the tavern had caused Sola to look at Lunamaria as an enemy. That was Miroslav's doing. It was no coincidence that Sora was in the tavern that day before Miroslav and the others entered the tavern. It was Miroslav's plan to use the influence of the Sorza Chamber of Commerce. He also ordered a seat for Sola to sit on in advance. It was a back room with a screen. All that was left was for Miroslav to invite Ilaria and Lunamaria to go out to dinner and to sit next to them to avoid the coincidence. The plot is completed when Lunamaria speaks as if she were calling Sora a parasite at the table. In reality, Lunamaria did not refer to Sola as a parasite, but rather as a parasite of the natural world. It was Miroslav who verbally connected it to the adventurer party's parasitism, and furthermore, he took Sora out of it and pieced it together. Pretending to be drunk, Miroslav silenced Lunamaria's embarrassment, and he and Ilya laughed at each other. It was a fitting name for the man, he said. Even Lunamaria had no way of knowing that Sora was listening in the seat next to her. As a result, everything went according to Miroslav's aim. Why did Miroslav go to so much trouble? When Sola was a member of the Sword of the Falcon, the person he was closest to was Lunamaria. If the Lunamaria called her a parasite, Sora's shock would be immeasurable. Besides, as Miroslav knew that Lunamaria was sympathetic to Sola, it also meant that he had to nip this danger in the bud as soon as possible. In other words, it was necessary to break the bond between the two of them now, so that Lunamaria would not get carried away and plan for Sora's return to the party. In addition, Miroslav originally disliked Lunamaria. He did not like the fairy princess that he had been so much celebrated for when he was isolated from his surroundings in the Academy of Wise Men. Besides, Miroslav, who ultimately dropped out of the academy, did not have the qualifications to call himself a sage, like Lunamaria. That wasn't fun either. He didn't try to get rid of her like Sora did, but only because he appreciated Lunamaria's abilities as an adventurer. The only and biggest miscalculation in this plan was that Sola stayed in the city of Ishka. Miroslav couldn't help but cluck his tongue at this, but he was sure that she would leave the city in the not-too-distant future, and from then on, he let the bad news spread of its own accord. Now that I've seen it, I should have hunted him down more then, I murmured with a hint of regret. However, if I had done so, I couldn't even use it as a decoy to help Lars, so the decision to wait and see was not wrong. If only Sola had been killed by the Lord of the Flies in peace, everything would have been put to rest. That's when Miroslav was thinking about it. The door opened with a crackling sound. Miroslav's eyebrows lifted because he thought that an unpolite guild person had entered without a knock. If this was a woman, it would still be a woman, but the guild master has a man as a watchman. Miroslav has protested to the guild master several times, but there is no sign of improvement. It seems that the guild master is saying that he cannot afford to keep a valuable female staff member in a watchdog role for days at a time. That's how little importance is being placed on Miroslav. In anger at such treatment, Miroslav opened his mouth to shout at the person who had entered the room. But Miroslav's mouth did not speak. But his mouth never uttered a word, because the intruder had ripped out his consciousness with every angry voice that came out to his throat. Just before his body collapsed to the floor, Miroslav was likely picked up by the intruder. The intruder left a sheet of paper on the table set up in their room and left the room with Miroslav back on his back. It was a brilliant move that hadn't lasted more than 30 seconds since the intrusion. 21st episode start experiment. You think you can do this and get away with it for free? Miroslav's voice echoed through the silence of the forest. I responded with a sneer. I'll never get away with it. That's what I knew I had to do. When you realize the situation you're in, you might as well shut up. We're nowhere near the depths of Titis. What? Miroslav looks around as if in a panic. As expected of a high-ranking adventurer, he seemed to know immediately that our words were not a lie. His face is pale. Bah, you are a fool, you are. How could a level 1 person go this deep into the depths of the world? I don't care if you die. but please don't involve me in it. Isn't this rather a scene where you're wondering how the level 1 was able to get so far in? Which sorcerer ever fainted before now? No. How did you carry me across the gates of Ishka in the first place? I'll answer your questions later. We've got a long way to go, you know. If you don't mind, I'd like you to follow me around quietly. You fool, stop talking nonsense. No one is going to follow you. As soon as he said this, Miroslav jumped up and got away from me. Then he stared at me with the eyes of a demon. Embrace my enemy to death, Princess of Fire. Without any mental concentration or chanting, Miroslav suddenly completes his magic. Immediately afterwards, a band of flames oozing out of the air stretches out like a woman's arm, teasing my entire body. The arm is too fast to resist, and in the blink of an eye, my entire body is covered in flames. And then it exploded. With a roar, the trees around me shuddered violently, and a thick cloud of steam rose in the air. The voice of a triumphant Miroslav rang out from behind the white steam that blocked my vision. Their fifth circle of fire magic, Flame Princess. What do you think? Didn't the magic of the fifth sphere seem to be an act of God to you as a level 1? Oh, it still emits the chanting and makes it less powerful. He was relieved to take away my wand, but it's so shallow, typical for a low level. Rings, bracelets and earrings, all of which were made by grinding magic stones. Even if you don't have your wand, it won't interfere with your ability to use magic. As I listened to it, I thought to myself, what should I do? I'll just let him talk some more. To be honest, it's a bit interesting. No, but I don't want to take too long. I don't want to be a joke and then disappear. Let him win and then show himself. No, 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 no. I just didn't take it off because it's okay to leave it on. What? I would have brought my wand with me if I could. I left it behind because it was in the way. Well, looking at the power of this thing, it's not much to ask even if you had a wand. As I finished, a gust of wind blew in and dispelled the steam that covered my vision. Miroslav's eyes widened as if he couldn't believe it. Wow. How could you be alive? That's because your magic was so bad. Can you try it with chanting this time? This fast fire arrow. This time it's the fire arrow, or perhaps a version with increased speed. In Miroslav's style, this is the positive magic of the fire of the second sphere. Although it's lower than the previous one, it's at the level where your head will be blown off if you bite into it. It's a good thing that Miroslav is an excellent magician, no matter what his character is. Thinking about that, I opened my mouth with an open mouth. And then, a loud shout, extinguishing the flaming arrows. Seeing this, Miroslav's eyes widened. The red-haired sorcerer, whose eyes are now torn open, takes a step or two back, as if to say he can't believe it. It's a good thing that you're not going to be able to find out what's going on. You can't kill magic with just your spunk. You're not a monster. That one's called a jade gun. Jinn gun. It's my home magic. The magic of my hometown. If you want to put it in a sorcerer's way, I released the magic inside my body to cancel out your magic. Is that what you mean? You're kidding me. There's no way you can turn off mana-based magic with a Nodo. That's because a level 1 person like you has this magic. If you don't want to acknowledge the fact that it happened right in front of you, that's fine too. I don't need you to convince me of anything. With that, he quickly closed the distance between him and Miroslav. The fact that the other side could not react at all is probably because it has not yet awakened from its surprise. I put my right hand around Miroslav's waist, quickly restraining his movements, and then I grabbed his chin with my left hand. What are you doing? As it was, I brought our lips close together. I sent a mockery to Miroslav, who stiffened without understanding the situation. With only my eyes, and I ate the sorcerer's soul as much as I could. The reason I wanted to lock up Miroslav was, in a word, for experimentation. It's not like I was thinking, I'm going to lock up a woman with a cocky, sly and hateful personality, but I'm going to lock her up with a superior face and body and train her to be a submissive slave who does what I say. It's just not true. The experiment was about another soul-eating phenomenon that had appeared in the brothel. That time, after devouring the soul of a prostitute, I was raised to the 6th level. In extreme cases, I can level up just by holding a woman without having to defeat a demon from now on. However, the woman who had her soul eaten by me, the woman who had been eaten by me, was finally out of breath. Without a doubt, this was the result of overeating beyond the permitted amount. If this continued, the people around them would be suspicious indeed. If the truth came out, he could become a target for defeat. And frankly, I'm just like a vampire. What I'm trying to do, in order to avoid such a situation, I have to know this ability. How far is it acceptable? How long does it take for a woman whose soul has been eaten away to recover? Is it something that can be recovered in the first place? Can soul eating be triggered at will? There are many other things I want to find out. But when it came to actually confirming this, there were many problems. It was not possible for me to sleep in a brothel every time I conducted an experiment. There was also the possibility that he had already been marked in the red light district after the incident the other day. Under such circumstances, if you let him die, there is nothing you can do to recover. I thought about carrying out the experiment while being considerate of my opponent, but there was a possibility that he might go out of control like he had done at that time, and above all, I couldn't get accurate information from an experiment carried out while holding back. Miroslav was the best person to solve those problems. This guy would not cause you any pain even if you killed him inadvertently. He could conduct even the most severe experiments without mercy. To be honest, I'm still not ready to take that much of a leap of faith when dealing with Ilaria and Luna Maria. I can do it because it's Miroslav. In the meantime, Miroslav came to himself in my arms and began to resist, flailing his arms and legs like a madman. But this is the equivalent of a child's resistance to me. It's a good thing that they use magic, but no matter how good a sorcerer you are, you can't use your magic completely silently. This is because even if you can omit the chanting, keywords, such as Flame Princess and Fast Fire Arrow need to be vocalized. It was impossible for Miroslav to do so now that his lips were covered. When he had eaten the spirit of a geisha before, it had tasted like a thick sweet wine. The heat and spiciness from Miroslav made his tongue go numb. If I were to describe it, it would taste like a very dry ginger wine, ginger ale. It doesn't look anything like that of a woman's sake. Is this a difference between individuals, or is it a difference in the way they feel about me? I wondered, so I decided to experiment immediately. As I boldly crawled my hand around my waist, Miroslav's resistance became more intense than ever, and my mouth became hotter than ever, to the point where it felt like it was going to burn. It seems that the emotions of the person being eaten also have a big effect on me, after all. Anger, humiliation, shame, that sort of thing. I enjoy Miroslav's resistance for a while, and continue the experiment. Miroslav occasionally tries to resist, but my physical abilities are beyond the reach of a sorcerer, as my body is full of power. I'm sure a lot of time has passed since I came to my senses. Well, unlike the time in the brothel, this time it's as if I extended it half on my own accord. I looked at Miroslav's face as he was wrestling down. The red-haired sorcerer, looking exhausted, stared back at me with anger, disgust and contempt in his eyes. Something in my heart trembles at the look in his eyes. Driven by the urge, I tried to drape myself over Miroslav again, but we were still in the woods. If I were to be attacked by a demon while Miroslav is on my mind, I would be blinded. I restrained myself from veering off and let out a deep breath. 22nd episode, question. Determination and two kinds of demon beasts. I crouched in a corner of the forest in the brilliant sunlight, picking the grasses at hand while thinking. The herbs I'm gathering now are not so much medicinal herbs as they are fragrant, and when added to a dish they have a refreshing taste. It is recommended for use in oil or salty soups. It is a rare herb, and the reward set by the guild is high. That herb grows in clusters. It is indeed the depths of Titis. I can see other plants and trees that I know here and there. If it was me a month ago, I would have been collecting them all with a different color of my eyes. I don't make a living gathering medicinal herbs now, so I don't need to be that obsessed. I don't need to be so attached to it. But I've been picking weeds quietly for a long time, or maybe it's just a long-standing habit, and my heart was naturally lifted. It was not good. I tried to calm down and think for a while, but before I knew it, I was absorbed in gathering medicinal herbs. What I was thinking about was the question that had been bubbling up in my mind while I was repeating the experiment with Miroslav. In other words, isn't it weird how strong I am? Isn't he too strong? Frankly, as much as I would like to say you're getting cocky, that's not the case. The first thing I wondered about was what happened on the way to take Miroslav to the nest. At that time, I was able to withstand Miroslav's magic flame princess with only the defense of Jing Jing Jing. It's not that I was able to endure it, I mean I didn't even get a scratch on it. It's a very good idea to have a good idea of what you're looking for. I had never even used a Jujin before, so to speak. I was a beginner at Jujin. It's a good thing that I've learned how to use the Jujin itself, but it doesn't mean that my technique has improved dramatically. I'm sure you'll be able to find a way to make your life easier with the magic of Miroslav's renowned adventurer and magician. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. Yes, speaking of levels, this was also a question. I haven't leveled up since I leveled up in the brothel the other day. In the past month, I've defeated several forest demons while I was preparing, and I've been eating Miroslav's soul every day for the past 7 days or so, but I still didn't raise my level. Miroslav's soul is thicker than that of the brothels, perhaps partly because of the level, but it is thicker than that of the brothels. It's not surprising that the level of the brothel was raised in one night in the brothel, so it's not surprising that the level of the brothel was raised after 7 days. Of course, I know that leveling up becomes more and more difficult as you go up a level. If this was a level 20 or 30, I wouldn't have questioned it so much. But I'm still level 6. I thought souls are an incredibly high purity experience. But even I can't level up this much, so how are the rest of you guys going to be able to level up? If you convert the souls I've eaten in the past week into the experience of others, it should be a ridiculous number. It's hard to imagine that the other level 6 adventurers are acquiring this without laboring. It was definitely not a difference that could be cleared up in one word: individual differences. I'm sure that the experience value required to level up is much higher than others. That's exactly what I need, more than 10,000, where most people can get away with 100. If that's the case, then it's like a dragon raising the bar, not a human anymore. No way, I don't think so. However, when I think about what happened when I acquired the mind dressing, I don't think I was wrong. My homogeneous existence, anima, was a dragon. If that's the case, then I myself have some sort of dragon factor in me, and if this idea is correct, then the question I've been asking myself for years is resolved. Why didn't my level rise to the top from scratch? One of the common beliefs about leveling up: even if you defeat a demon weaker than you hundreds or thousands of times, your level will not increase. Compared to a dragon, every demon would be a small fish. As long as you don't defeat any of the illusory species, they won't be able to add to your experience level. If that's the case, it's only natural that human training and the monsters that fledgling adventurers defeat didn't raise their levels. Another reasoning to be drawn from this: if the experience value required to level up is different, then the increase in ability that comes with leveling up should also be different. Maybe my level and others' levels are fundamentally different. Absolutely. Anyway, it would be better if we could look at experience level and ability, not just level numbers. If possible, it would be even better if there was a description of your profession. If my status was marked Dragon Warrior level 1 inch, my time on the island would be much different. Well, it's too late to say that now. Besides, since the path to strength has been opened up like this, those days were meaningful. The current me is able to fight to some extent even after returning to the island. Considering the strength of the demons on the island, I'm sure it's worth the effort. It's about my father. He wouldn't make me back as a true-born son, but if he judged me to be an asset, he could well think of assigning me to a lower-ranking squad member. The Mitsurugi family defends Onigashima, and the 8 squadrons that serve as its hands and feet. Flying the flag of the Hoshin, plating, they were the island's guardians, from the captain above to the terror's soldiers below, all of whom operated the illusionary one-dimensional style. They are known as the Siren Haki. All of the island's children adored Siren Haki. My classmates are probably in the top ranks of the team by now. As to be expected, they have not yet become captains. Laguna and Ayaka may have become vice-captains, though. By the way, Siren is the ancient name of Onigashima, or rather, it's still the official name of the island. Most people only call it Onigashima anymore, but the island's elders still call it Sirindo. In the past, before the establishment of the Demon Gate, Onigashima was a scenic island lined with lush trees. Well, that was over 300 years ago, so even the old-timers had never seen it with their own eyes. The blue team cloak of the 8 banners of the Blue Forest is a symbol of strength for me. It was a dream of mine to wear it. Now I can make that dream come true if I want to. It was also about fulfilling the vow I made when I left the island. I'll come back to you. I will come back with the ability to fight on this island. I remember the disappointment of that time as if it were yesterday. On the island, there is a lot of know-how on the mind suit. If you can come into contact with it, you will be able to use it even better than now. I thought so, but I didn't want to go home. I'm sure that if I went back now, even if I were to be relieved of my exile, at best I'd be a hired gunman of the Terror. It's better than the weaknesses of the past, but I don't want to imagine being bossed around by my father, Lagana, Ayaka, my classmates, and my brothers and sisters from Gaz and Cecil. At the time, I thought I'd be able to make the people of the island acknowledge me, but well, now that I think about it, it's not that I wanted them to acknowledge me. But now that I think about it, it's not so much that I wanted their approval, it's just that I wanted to show them the favor. I wanted to show them that I was stronger than they were and that I had seen what they were capable of. I wanted to show them that they were wrong about me. But I'm not ready for that. I can still be strong. Eat Miroslav, eat the Falcon Blade, eat the guild, and become stronger and stronger. And when I've eaten as much as I can, let's go home to that island. Let's go home and prove it. I've surpassed you all. That's the way the sword is supposed to be. It's not what I once dreamed of, but it can't be helped now. I have no sympathy for such ideals as salvation and protection of the people. It's not that I've forgotten about them in the past. But now, here and now, I have to take it to heart once again. To be honest, I've been on a bit of a roll since I acquired the mind outfit. I didn't think I could go back to the beginning by collecting medicinal herbs. From now on, when I'm lost in something, I should pick medicinal herbs. In a meditative sense, I thought to myself and looked around. I noticed that there was a pile of medicinal herbs I had picked around me. That's when I grimaced at the fact. The ground shook so much that my body lifted up. At first, I thought it was an earthquake. But after hearing multiple, possibly demonic beasts' roars and the sound of a fierce battle, I had an idea that it was a battle between large demonic beasts. One could tell just from the sounds that could be heard that it was quite a fierce battle. Judging from the number of voices, there seemed to be more than 10 demonic beasts lightly gathered together. However, most of them seemed to be of the same species, so the battle might be taking place in a many-on-one fashion. Probably, these monster beasts that hunt in packs are trying to kill their large prey. If that's the case, I thought, I'll just let them go. It doesn't matter how the two hexen beasts squash each other. There is no doubt that there is a way to take advantage of this, but it would be foolish to take on more than 10 unknown monsters on your own. I'm sure they're in a good mood after having just hunted their prey, and it's not like I was attacked. I begin to pack up the herbs I've picked to return to the nest. But there was an extraordinarily loud roar, as if to thwart my intentions. From the sound of its voice, it was not the many one, but the one. In other words, I'm the one being hunted. Probably with its last strength, the demonic beast flapped its wings hard and flew up into the sky, unable to do so, and fell to the ground again. If it had jumped up and fallen on the spot, there would have been no problem, but it seemed to have flown at an angle and at an angle, so the place of its fall was way off. In short, the winged beast slipped into my field of vision with a zigzagging motion. It was a two-legged dragon with indigo scales that were bright to the eye. It was a magical beast called the Indigo Wyvern, and the one that emerged after the Wyvern, Shushissi. Strange. There is a human being in such a place. It was a man-eating demonic beast, man-eater, manticore with the face of an old man, the body of a lion, and a scorpion's tail. 23rd episode Indigo Wyvern. The manticore is a fierce beast with a human face that lives in the forest. Its face is that of an old man, and it can speak human language. However, it is not a friendly creature, and if it encounters a manticore, a battle will almost certainly ensue. The lion's torso is as agile as it looks, and running through the forest is as flat as a flatland, making it nearly impossible to escape the pursuit of this demon in the forest. The scorpion's tail is not only poisonous, but also has 24 spikes that can break even large trees with a single blow. It is said that some manticores use these spikes as flying tools. In any case, They are the kind of monster beasts you don't want to encounter in the forest. So there are 10 of these manticores. What kind of coincidence is this, at all? A group of manticores appear one by one in pursuit of the winged beast. Wyvern. I let out a sigh and put down the bag of herbs I was holding on the ground. Whether it's fighting or running away, it's only a hindrance. I vow to collect it when it's over. Shushissy. They are not as good as pterodactyls, but humans are human and have a taste. Curse your bad luck in meeting us here. Manticore taunts us. I decided to test to see if what I had read earlier in the material was true. The sun rises in the west. The everlasting river flows back from east to west, and fire burns in the water. What is its heart? Howl, howl, thy fate is already settled. Shushish. Manticore doesn't care about our unintelligible words at all. The fact that he speaks human language does not necessarily mean that he has any intention of speaking. He just says what he wants to say, and has no intention of talking to the other person. I see, it's just as it said in the document. I didn't have to waste a lot of effort. The winged beast shall fall, the man shall die, and our bellies shall be full. Shushishi. Delightful, indeed. Delightful. Then die a happy death. A heartbeat away. With those words, the black sword was gripped in my hand. A group of manticores swayed like reeds in the wind. The individual who had been taunting us has also stopped moving his or her mouth. It's obvious that they are wary. But I wanted to warn them that if they were going to be wary anyway, they should wait until the sword is drawn. Because the mind gear in this state is, let's say, just a weapon. Eat it up. Soul Eater. Batu. The bursting black flash of light caused the manticores to back away as if frightened. While looking at those demonic beasts, I quickly sunk my body into them. The sword is on my left hip and the tip of the sword is behind me. It's similar to the position of an AI, but my mind gear doesn't have an sheath, so it's only similar. In this stance, I let the blade wrap around my jade. The technique is a flying slash, the same sash that I used in my battle with the Lord of the Flies. However, that sash, High 8, was an imitation of the model act he had seen on the island. It was still more than powerful enough, so he didn't mind, but he was curious to see what it would be like if he put all of his current self-power on it. Putting a lid on the joy of being freed from the level 1 curse. I put a lid on the belief that I'm still only level 6. I also put a lid on the common sense that I am a human being. There is no need to underestimate or overestimate. It's just a matter of taking in everything you have in the present. The amount of power increased. Jing jing jing. Quality increases. You'll be able to use your power and mouth at maximum efficiency. The jaws wrapped around your sword blade rage like a howling sound. I'm sure you'll be able to find a way to make it work. The space creaked at the edge. My mind's clothing is begging me to feed on its soul as quickly as possible. It must have instinctively sensed the increase in its power. The manticore from earlier called out in a high-pitched voice to the surrounding compatriots. No, number, jump, slow. As he shouted, he flashed his black sword in a single horizontal stroke. I'm not sure how far they can reach, considering the distance between them and the enemy. But the black sword, which has sucked in my strength, has made the distance between us go back to 0. This is a very important part of the process. No matter how agile a monster beast is, this attack is unbeatable. Several manticores let out cries of astonishment and pain and fell to the ground while spewing blood smoke. There were 5 of them, which was exactly half of the herd. The others were either not within the range of the slash from the beginning, or they were the only ones that reacted quickly to the commands of the individual who seemed to be the leader. I looked at the 3 heads that leapt into the air and curved my lips. I flipped the tip of my sword that I swung off to the side and corrected my swordsmanship. I aim at the 3 manticores that have flown into the air. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the leader of the group peeling his eyes out in astonishment. Kill. Sheer. I don't have wings, and I can't dodge aerial attacks. My second strike struck 3 heads off with ease. Normally, a manticore's torso is covered with hard muscles, and its outer skin is slick with fat, so it's not easy for the blade to reach its flesh. However, the black sword would cut through such a manticore's torso like a piece of tofu. Each of the cannibalistic demonic beasts sent a splash of blood popping, causing 3 blooms of blood to bloom in the air. Immediately afterwards, a tremendous amount of souls poured in, causing me to choke out in delight. I'm strong after all. I instantly kill a manticore that is feared as a cannibal, man-eater. Of course, I had to wear a heart outfit, but that doesn't negate my own power. I'm not going to be able to say anything about it, because it's my power. My guess about the previous level was correct. At the very least, my previous perceptions were wrong. I am clearly convinced of that. Now, at this rate, let's get the remaining 2 cows killed. With that in mind, I turned my attention to the surviving manticore, and what I saw was it was the figure of a pterodactyl, wyvern, biting the skull of one manticore and hurling the body of the other with a blow of its tail. Probably both of them would have died instantly. There was no part of the pterodactyl's indigo scales that wasn't stained with blood, and more than half of its scales had come off, revealing red flesh underneath. To all appearances, it was seriously injured. It might as well have been a near-death experience, but as expected of the indigo wyvern, which is known for its ferocity and viciousness even among the wyvern species. It seems that no matter how much damage it takes, if the opponent is a manticore or 2, it is equipped with the power to kick the shit out of them. Now, the question is whether or not these winged beasts will turn their mighty power against me. As a result, I ended up helping them, but I don't think the other side understands that. In terms of viciousness, there's not much difference between indigo winged beasts and manticores. The same is true in terms of their hostility to humans. It was no wonder they were attacking us at this very moment. Incidentally, the wyvern itself can become familiar with humans. The dragon knights of the Canary Kingdom are exactly the knights who ride tame winged beasts. But basically, those pterodactyls need to be raised by humans from eggs. The wild pterodactyl would only feed on humans, and no matter how well they are raised, they would never get used to it. I've heard that this is especially true of the indigo-colored pterodactyls. I've heard that they are one of the most powerful wyvern species, and there are many people who try to tame them, but I've never heard of anyone succeeding in doing so. The indigo-winged beast looked at me with a roar as it spat out a chewed-up manticore head in an awkward manner. I thought it was coming, so I quickly raised my black sword, but contrary to my expectations, the winged beast did not attack. It turned its duller-than-expected eyes toward me, staring at me intently. My image was reflected in the vertical pupils that reminded me of a snake. Suddenly, the winged beast's gaze left me and turned to a different direction. At about the same time, I turned my eyes in that direction as well. One of the manticores, the leader one, was still alive and stood up on the spot. I clicked my tongue. Did I fail to stop it? And here, the indigo-winged beast moved. It must have a grudge that it had been hurt a moment ago and was on the verge of being eaten. The winged beast's long neck swelled up gingerly, and something like steam poured out of its mouth. I mean, an winged beast, wyvern, can breathe out flame breath. Wait a minute. Is it okay to release a flame breath in the middle of a forest like this? I thought so, but it's not good enough to have them turn on us for incompetence here. Besides, I remember the anger, fear and regret I felt when I was on the verge of being eaten. I was hesitant to interfere with a winged beast that was trying to avenge its resentment. As a result, the breath that was released from the indigo-winged beast, or rather, a fireball as big as a human head, flew through the air in a straight line and hit the manticore, which had turned its back to me and was trying to escape. The manticore was enveloped in flames and disappeared. Afterwards, I looked around a bit in the nearby woods. I'd never heard of a manticore herding, or even a herd of 10 manticores, for that matter. It was the first time I'd ever seen a manticore in this area. Manticores, which usually live deeper in the back of the house, had drifted out in groups. They must have lost their habitat. That's what he thought. But there was no way they could find any clues in 30 minutes or so of searching. If I followed the manticore's footsteps into the depths, or maybe I could find out something. But I'm not prepared for that. Most importantly, if we did that, there would be no point in going to the trouble of catching Miroslav. I had no choice but to convince myself that I would pay attention to the movements of the forest for the time being. When I did so, I was surprised when I returned to my original location. The indigo-colored winged beast was writhing on the ground with a painful voice and a thud. I wondered what was going on, when I suddenly realized that it was nothing until a moment ago. A manticore's tail is very poisonous. Fortunately, I didn't get hit once, but it's not hard to imagine how many times this winged beast would have been stung by its tail. What to do? Fortunately, if it was only medicinal herbs, I just picked a mountain of them just now. However, as expected, they don't contain any poisonous herbs powerful enough to neutralize the manticore's poison. If we return to the nest, we'll find the poisonous plant. That's because I prepared it in case something happened to me during my confinement. But the amount was minimal, and considering the huge size of the winged beasts, I'm not sure if it will be effective even if I gave them all to drink. Before that, would human medicinal herbs work on the winged beasts? The poisoner. The poisoner. Somewhere. Yes. There it is, the effective one that neutralized the Lord of the Flies' paralyzing poison. Geariox. It's not far from here. If we run as fast as we can, clad in jade, we'll be back in less than an hour. If you think about it calmly, there's no need to go that far against a wyvern, and if you want, you could cut it down right now, but when I remember the dull eyes from earlier, I hesitated to do so. Well, even if it was, we're good friends who fought together. If they're going to attack us even ungratefully after the poison has been cured, then that's when we'll eat them. When I saw the winged beast lying on the ground with its long neck lying on the ground and growling in pain, I bent down lightly and then ran out at full speed. 24th episode, the looming ending. A week has passed since we rescued the indigo, winged beast, wyvern. By now you can already see the result of this, but the indigo-scaled wyvern survived. The wyvern that ate the Geariochus fruit was so sour that it said, "Pugi," and screamed like a pig, but soon enough, he was out from under the influence of the manticore's poison. Geariochus is amazing, I thought again. The wyvern, however, is now building what looks like a nest on the cliff, showing signs of settling in. I'd like to say that I took care of it while it was injured, and that I missed it. But it looks different. In the first place, if a monster beast misses you just because you treat its injuries, no one will have a hard time with it. The wyvern is not pining for you, it's more like it's following you. Like this, like a henchman obeying the boss, or rather, is this a knight obeying the king? Anyway, he shows total obedience. It seemed to understand human language to some extent, and it did not disobey my orders. When I ordered him to fly on my back, he did so without hesitation, even though he jumped off the cliff and began to glide. I thought I was going to die. The wyvern itself was also very difficult to fly because of my unaccustomed backpack, so I wobbled this way and that, and eventually ended up crashing and landing in the woods. When you think about it, it's obvious, but a wyvern that has never carried anyone else would never know how to fly without being a burden to the rider. I apologized to the wyvern, embarrassed by my thoughtlessness. The wyvern himself seemed to be ashamed of his mistake, and since then, every time he looked at me, he asked me if I wanted to get in. "Can I give you a ride?" It turns its dull eyes to me as if to say, "I'm going to do this." The fact that the wings are flapping around is an indication of his motivation. He seems to want a chance to redeem himself, and his earnestness is also knightly. I'll make a riding saddle in the future and try again. When I get back to Ishka, I might look into collecting information on Dragon Knights. How to make a saddle and bridle. The Dragon Knight is the most powerful force in the Canary Kingdom, and the information on them is definitely a military secret, so it's not going to work out that well. Therefore, the wyvern riding plan has been stalled, but the rest of the plans have been mostly successful. Of course, this was Miroslav. Since I've been here, I've eaten Miroslav's soul 4 times, morning, afternoon, evening and night. Naturally, he resisted violently at first, but in the past few days, he started to give me his lips without a riot. Needless to say, it wasn't a willingness to do so. His expression is one of disgust and humiliation, and when he's done, he hangs over a barrel of water and rinses his mouth over and over again. Sometimes he would vomit as it was. But at least he didn't rebel to my face anymore. I didn't say anything in particular to Miroslav. I didn't tie him up in the cave, and I let him do what he wants. In addition to mine, there is a tent for Miroslav in the cave, where he can sleep, change clothes, bathe in the hot water, go to the bathroom, and so on, away from my eyes. If Miroslav wanted, he could live without looking at me, except when he was eating. The reason why I was going to this extent was because I didn't want Miroslav to break down easily. After all, she's the daughter of a good family, and she probably wouldn't last 10 days living in this cave, unable to wash her face properly and being tortured by me every day. That's why I prepared various things for her. Of course, being out of my sight means that they can take me by surprise or hide and escape as they please. In fact, the first 5 days or so were moderately busy. Well, I crushed them all. When I clearly rebelled in that way, I removed the 4 times a day limit and decided to eat them until they passed out, or even after they passed out. And, incidentally, this is when I reach for something other than my lips. By doing so, he teaches them a lesson without saying a word. If you do what I tell you to do, all you have to do is give me your lips, he said. The reason I didn't say it verbally was to make them think. The point is that Miroslav himself has to obey voluntarily, not just because I tell him to, and he doesn't want to. When the element of obedience is added to disgust and repulsion, the taste of the soul also changes. There's another thing I've learned as a result of this half-month-long experiment. Miroslav seemed to feel pleasure, or something close to it, when he had his soul eaten by me. This is probably a kind of protective reaction of the body and mind against being eaten by the soul. And now that I think about it, the brothel girl in the brothel had that kind of reaction. It is said that when a vampire sucks the blood of a virgin, the other party gets sexual pleasure, and it seems to be like that. Anyway, as a result of those meals, my level had risen from 6 to 7. But now that the supply from Miroslav has stabilized, my level would have risen without the manticore, which is also what I learned from the experiment. This was also found in the experiment, but eating a large number of souls at once would take a large amount of time to recover afterwards, which would be inefficient. The first 5 days, then the next 5 days, and then the next 5 days after that. The later the soul gained increases. This was in proportion to the degree of Miroslav's obedience. Right now, Miroslav was the only provider, but if the number of providers was increased in the future, he would be able to feed on souls more consistently, yet the burden on the women's side would surely be lighter. My next target is either Rylaria or Lunamaria, but now, which one should I set my sights on? While thinking about this, I look at Miroslav in front of me. The red-haired sorcerer was sitting in front of me with a look of obvious disapproval. Since he showed up at the appointed time, he had no intention of doing anything unnecessary. I just can't stand the fact that he's dismissed as just like being bitten by a stray dog and that he's indifferent to me. That's why I'm determined to occasionally harass you and incite your hatred for me. Besides, no matter how many pieces of information there was to set up Hylaria and Lunamaria, there wasn't enough information to do so. Speaking of which, how come you still don't know the guy? I thought Lars would have had you in his arms long ago. Wah? I mean, that's none of your business. If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you take it away. Does it? I've been crying and begging you not to touch it, but if there's no particular reason, you don't mind if I take it, do you? Please don't. After giving a screeching sound, Miroslav looks down at me wistfully. If you don't answer, he seemed to understand that I would really take action after this half-month of confinement. I'm not going to be a mistress or a concubine. Even if it's Lars. You mean you won't give your body up until you're married and a wife? Incidentally, to briefly describe the marriage system in the Canary Kingdom, a slave does not take a wife. Commoners get 1 wife. Lower nobility, knights to barons, can get 2 wives. The higher nobility, those with estates above the rank of count, can get 3 wives. The king can get 4 wives. It goes something like this. This is the same in many countries on the continent, including the Ad Astera Empire. If there are more than 1, they are called first or second wives. Women who are not included in this category are called concubines and ladies. Miroslav is saying that he does not intend to be held in any position other than as a full wife, even if it is Lars. If Lars chooses Ilaria, are you going to step aside as an adult? Lars can get a recommendation to the Knights Inn not too far, until I have to prep at the Saucer Chamber of Commerce if necessary. I see. Even if she were to become a second wife, she would still be a regular wife. Miroslav's pride would be satisfied. Perhaps imagining that scene, Miroslav has a melting smile on his face. The way things are going, it's best to refrain from meddling in that sense after all, isn't it? Since I'm not interested in Miroslav's virginity in particular, I don't mind that at all. Anyway, does this guy really believe that he can return to Lars while protecting his virginity? If that's the case, then congratulations are in order. As for me, who's going to take everything away in the end and eat the soul tainted by despair, I have to say that when you openly exposed your face and attacked Miroslav by exposing your abilities, it should be obvious that you don't intend to let him leave safely. It's up to Miroslav to dream, but we're not obligated to make it happen. If you do what I say, I'll send you back to Ishka, Because I've never once said those words to you.